The story begins on a normal summer morning inside one of the cheap apartments where our protagonist, Min Jun, lives. Judging by the looks of it, the guy had a fun night playing video games, as his computer is still on. He's sleeping deeply until the annoying sound of the alarm clock disrupts his peaceful rest. Like most of us, the alarm is extremely irritating, and he forces himself to grab his phone and turn it off. Since he has school to attend, he gets out of bed still half asleep. When he walks into the kitchen, he finds a note from his mother on the fridge, saying that he'll have to manage on his own today, because she's already gone to work. After putting on his school uniform, he leaves the dimly lit apartment. As he walks through the rundown neighborhood where he lives, he can't help but glance at the luxurious high-rise in front of him. It seems like he envies the teenagers who live there, while he rots in the slums, trapped in a miserable life. Still, complaining won't solve his problems, so he heads towards school. The school in question is Sangin High School. Apparently, life at school isn't much easier for Min Jun either. Of course, there are the classic bullies who pick on him for no reason, enjoying themselves while doing so. Min Jun is left suffering on the floor. Leading this group is Park Song Bin, 18 years old, from class 3 of the second year. As Song Bin keeps mocking Min Jun, a voice cuts through the air, making everyone freeze. It's a girl, followed by her loyal group of followers. She's clearly unimpressed with Song Bun's childish behavior. He's always picking on weaker students, even though she also finds Min Jun pathetic. Still, she believes Song Bun's actions are damaging the school's reputation. Her name is Yana, also 18, from class 3. Song Bin quickly switches his attitude, pretending they're all best friends, treating Min Jun like the class pet, someone you can mess with without consequences. But Yana's point still stands. Song Bin is creating unnecessary chaos in the halls and ruining the school's decorum. If he wants to mess around, he should do it outside school grounds. Song Bin then points out that Yana probably hates Min Jun more than anyone, and now she's preaching morality. Yana defends herself by saying that while she may find Min Jun ugly, she's never physically assaulted him, unlike Song Bin. We learn that Yana and Min Jun have been classmates since middle school, just like Song Bin has known Min Jun for a while. Trying to smooth things over, Song Bin invites Yana to come with him to meet a new friend, but she flat out refuses. Apparently, the last time she agreed to hang out with him, he took her to Min Jun's half-finished apartment, which was smelly, messy, and screamed poverty. So there's no chance she's repeating that experience. The reason this princess has such high standards is that she lives in the luxurious apartment complex Min Jun was eyeing earlier, the same building visible from his home. Her parents are a hospital director and a successful professional, meaning she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She's always posting new pictures on social media, and pretty much everyone at school is a fan of hers. On top of that, she excels both in looks and academics. There are even rumors that she'll go to the United States next year to continue her studies. She seems like the perfect person with no real obstacles in life. But she has one major problem she can't get over. She despises poor, weak guys. And guess who fits that description? Yep, it's Min Jun. Back in 8th grade when Min Jun and Yana were in the same class, he finally gathered the courage to talk to her, but she replied with a tone full of disdain and irritation. To her, he was just a stinky little kid who followed her around like a mosquito, something she absolutely hated. Although their houses were along the same path, she couldn't stand walking next to him. She told him to take a different route so she wouldn't have to tolerate his smell. That was the moment it became clear to Min Jun this girl hated him with every fiber of her being. Speaking of smells, he had noticed that she always smelled nice. To him, that must be the scent of wealth. Under normal circumstances, after being humiliated and rejected, most people would start to hate the person who treated them that way. But Min Jun's feelings for her were unwavering. He was loyal to an absurd degree. He always sat next to her, even while being constantly ridiculed and belittled by her cruel remarks. Year after year, same school, same class, same one-sided love. Despite all the constant mockery, he never gave up. At times, he began to question himself, am I crazy to love a girl who mocks me every chance she gets? This is Min Jun's life, physically beaten by Sabin and emotionally tortured by Yana. Welcome to the life of a certified and pathetic loser. Later, Min Jun is hanging out with his two friends, who are just talking about anime, being the otakus they are. The chubby one, in particular, seems obsessed with anime, while the skinny one beside him, Suho, hasn't really been keeping up with the anime scene lately. Meanwhile, Min Jun sits there silently like a background NPC, just observing. Suho, 18 years old, and the chubby one is Bone Jr., also 18. Suho and Bone Jr. are in different classes from Min Jun, but they're the only friends he has who actually share a personality similar to his. The only difference is, they're not the ones being bullied. Min Jun feels seriously envious of them. The only explanation he can come up with is that they're simply lucky, while he's the one who receives all the unwanted attention the world has to offer. His train of thought is interrupted when his friends ask if he's interested in going to a Luminina concert. If he's down, they'll grab extra tickets. The idol model on the phone looks hot, but Min Jun doesn't care about that kind of thing anymore. Honestly, he's lost his last bit of interest in these idols. Of course, his friends think he's missing out on a great opportunity. Now that they're thinking about it, they begin to notice that Min Jun has been looking like a walking corpse lately. As they head out, they can't help but throw out a few colorful remarks about how depressed Min Jun seems, without any apparent reason. Back in class, Min Jun just wants the day to to end so he can escape his miserable life. Then he hears Sabin and his crew talking about some random guy who stared them down when they tried to mess with him. The guy looked intimidating, but the boys are sure that Sabin could have easily taken him down. Apparently this guy came from North Korea to South Korea. They're mocking him for abandoning his parents and running away to save himself. As they talk, the guy they're ridiculing, Kanjal, shows up and hears everything. Naturally, he's not going to take that lying down. Song Bin's ego gets bruised when Akul stares at him like he's nothing. Song grabs him by the collar, but this Sigma doesn't even react to the aggressive move. He simply suggests that Song Bin shouldn't badmouth others unless he's ready for the consequences. Song Bin refuses to let go. But before things escalate into complete chaos, his lackeys step in to calm him down. Eventually Song Bin lets go of Kuel, but not before threatening his life. While all of this is happening, Min Jun is just sitting quietly in the background, wondering to himself when he'll finally be free from this hellish school. When school ends, Min Jun walks home, his mind spinning with all kinds of thoughts. He's seriously considering dropping out completely. It seems like his only way out of this miserable life. He's made up his mind. There's no turning back now. That's when Seong Bin and his goons cross his path. Curiously, they seem happy to see him. Song wants cigarettes and tells our protagonist to ask a woman nearby to buy them at the convenience store. After all, they're underage and can't buy them themselves. Of course, Min Jun knows this is just another way for Song Bin to bully him. And he's had enough. Instead of putting up with it, he simply ignores them and keeps walking home. Song gets furious that Min Jun is ignoring him. As expected, he and his thugs beat Min Jun up and dump him in an abandoned construction site. Song holds a brick which he uses repeatedly to bash Min Jun's head. They hope this beating will teach him to obey, but Min Jun has reached his limit. With a broken, defeated voice, he tells Song to just kill him. He's lost the will to live. Dying feels like the only escape. For some reason, that response really enrages Song. He gets even angrier and kicks the boy one last time before leaving. Before walking away, the bastard makes one final threat: if Min Jun ever tries to kill himself and mentions them in his suicide note, he promises to find his mother and kill her on the spot. With that, they leave Min Jun broken and battered at the construction site. Dawn begins to rise on the horizon as Min Jun makes his way home after everything. The only thought in his mind is that he wishes the world would just end by tomorrow, but he knows that won't happen. So his best option is to go to the top of that luxury apartment complex he's always stared at and jump. It'll all be over in minutes. With that plan in mind, he starts heading toward the building, ready to end it all. That's when he runs into Yana, the girl who despises him the most. She gets irritated just by his presence and demands to know why he's wandering around there if it's not his home. Seeing how badly he's injured, she's certain he's not there to deliver anything. On the contrary, he looks like he's planning some kind of robbery. Of course, she then remembers how pathetic he really is. Well, that's exactly why he came, to end it all, once and for all. On the other hand, the girl starts to question his bruised face, wondering if someone beat him up. She's genuinely annoyed that he never fights back and always takes the blows like the damn dog he is. She goes on a long rant for a while, and eventually, the guy just turns and walks away from the building. That spoiled brat keeps complaining about how he's ignoring her, but eventually gives up and decides to continue this conversation the next day. Later, Min Jun returns to his cramped, smelly apartment to relax. He turns on his PC and puts on his headphones to dive into some video games. Thinking about everything that happened, he realizes she wasn't wrong. He really does deserve everything she said. That's why he's never going back to school again. Starting tomorrow, he plans to get a job and help his mother with household expenses. Night falls and Min Jun is still wrecking enemies in his FPS game, mowing down waves of zombies. Suddenly, his friends in the live chat say they're logging off and leaving, which doesn't make any sense to Min Jun. After all, it's only 10 p.m. There's still a good 2 hours until midnight. That's when his friends remind him about the breaking news, the outbreak. The world outside is in chaos right now, and as if it were fate, Min Jun hears a commotion outside. He gets up and cautiously walks to the front door. Just as someone starts banging insistently, he checks the peephole before opening it. It appears to be one of his upstairs neighbors, asking him to open the door in a trembling voice. Upon hearing this, Min Jun assumes the guy is drunk again, but he doesn't realize that man is no longer his drunken neighbor. He makes the mistake of opening the door. The first thing he notices is the blood covering the man's entire body, along with a massive torn wound on his stomach. Even so, Min Jun thinks the man must have been seriously injured and considers calling emergency services. But then the zombified man lets out an inhuman scream before lunging at Min Jun. They both fall to the ground, the zombie landing on top of him. Min Jun finally kicks him away after realizing the man is completely out of his mind. He crawls backward and locks the door. His heart is pounding, his breathing is heavy, his legs tremble uncontrollably. There's no way that psycho is just his normal neighbor. He grabs his phone to call the police, but nothing connects. That's when he notices the emergency alerts on the screen. Unknown attacks are happening in Seoul and in unspecified regions. Everyone is being advised to stay indoors for their safety. Then he hears chaos erupting just above his basement apartment. He opens the window just enough to peek outside, and what he sees is pure hell. People are literally tearing each other apart. He even sees his neighbor again, still roaming the streets and causing destruction. That's when he starts worrying about his mother and tries calling her, but there's no signal. Night falls and Min Jun turns off all the lights in the apartment, curling up in a corner under a blanket. He tries connecting any network, but nothing works. no signal, no updates. He turns on the TV in search of answers about this chaotic situation. The news anchor reports a series of brutal murders committed by unidentified civilians across the country. The government is calling it an act of indiscriminate terrorism and says they are investigating the cause and those responsible, but there are still no concrete details. The anchor urges everyone to stay home, lock doors and windows, and avoid any contact with the outside world. The next update reveals that Busan has also fallen. Similar violent incidents are being reported not only in Seoul, Busan, and Incheon, but also in smaller cities. Police and military forces are being mobilized, but the situation already seems out of control. Min-jun feels utterly hopeless, overwhelmed by terrifying news after terrifying news. He's so shocked it feels like a nightmare he can't wake up from. From what he's heard, it seems like the world's been taken over by zombies, but that only happens in games and movies. It's too ridiculous to be real. And yet everything he's seen so far confirms it. He wants answers, and staying locked in this dim apartment isn't going to help. He decides to go out and secure the building's front door as firmly as possible. Before opening it, he peeks through the peephole to make sure no zombies are lurking. With the path clear, he carefully opens the door and steps outside. As he climbs the stairs to the ground floor, an eerie silence surrounds him. When he reaches the main entrance of the building, he peeks outside and spots a zombie wandering the street. He immediately shuts the door and locks all the bolts. His next goal is to check if there are any survivors on the upper floors, but with the deadly silence, it seems like no one's there. For now, he decides it's not worth the risk. He'll wait until morning. He's convinced that the police or military will eventually show up to rescue them. He turns the TV back on, hoping for updates. But before anything important appears, the transmission cuts off. With no other choice, he lies down and tries to sleep, but with all this madness happening, he can't fall asleep. More than anything, there's a disturbing feeling inside him. Just yesterday, he wanted to end his own life because the world was too cruel. He even wished the whole world would burn. And now, it seems like his wish has come true. But that doesn't mean life got any easier. In fact, now he's just fighting to survive. It doesn't take much reflection to realize that nothing's really changed. It was already hell before, and it's still hell now. So all these zombies and the end of the world don't really scare him, because honestly, he was already as miserable as a person could be. Morning comes. The streets are filled with abandoned cars, zombies wandering everywhere. Min-jun finally opens the main door and risks peeking outside. The air feels wrong. There's a strong metallic smell of blood hanging over everything, so intense that he slams the door shut and locks it again. Going out without preparation would be suicide. He heads to the kitchen and luckily he has enough supplies. 4 packs of ramen, 6 cups of instant noodles, some pre-cooked rice and raw rice. Enough food for about 2 weeks. He has 3 bottles of water. Thankful the tap still works. Even the gas is still running. For now, if he manages his supplies well, he can last about a month. That should be enough time for someone to find him. Maybe a rescue team will eventually help him escape. For now, his biggest concern is his mother. Since he can't connect to the network, there's no way to know what happened to her. All he can do is hope that she's alive and safe. Then he remembers there are 5 families living in this building. In one of them, a college student used to live in the rooftop room. He recalls the guy being a real flirt, always bringing his girlfriend over every Tuesday for their little fun. Since yesterday was Tuesday, that means the couple might still be trapped up there. Min-jun gathers his courage and finally starts climbing to the upper floors. On the way, he checks each apartment, but there doesn't seem to be anyone around. The only place left is the room on the rooftop. As he climbs the stairs, he hopes to find the couple alive and well. Strangely, the rooftop door is wide open. When he gets there, he notices the college student's room is also open. Naturally, he steps inside, but what he sees is something he wishes he hadn't. On the other side of the room, the girl is already dead, while the college student has turned into one of those flesh-hungry zombies. Fortunately, Min-jun's eyes don't focus on the body, as it's in his blind spot. The only thing he sees in front of him is an absurd amount of blood. Enough to make him hesitate, he quickly abandons the idea of exploring the apartment. As he tries to retreat silently, he accidentally knocks over a flower pot, drawing the zombie's attention. Upon hearing the angry growls, Min-jun takes off like a cheetah, but his clumsy steps make him stumble. The zombie rushes out of the room and leaps at him immediately. Cleverly, he uses the zombie's momentum against it. He simply ducks, lets the zombie fly over him, and shoves the bastard, sending it falling off the rooftop. The scene leaves him breathless for a moment. He falls to his knees, nearly drained of strength. Without thinking twice, he runs back downstairs, locks the door behind him, and barricades himself again inside the apartment. He still hasn't processed that life, or death encounter with the monster. He can't yet accept that the university student from the rooftop, in whom he had placed his hopes, is now a mindless undead. And the most devastating part is that he literally pushed him off the top floor, causing his death. Even so, he tries to convince himself it wasn't his fault. What he did was just self-defense. The student attacked him first. Another night falls, and just like the one before, Min-jun is forced to spend it in that dark basement apartment. He sits in silence, the weight of guilt over the student's death gnawing at him from the inside. He gets up and goes out to the street, hoping to see the student again. In front of him stands a zombie. When it turns to face him, Min-jun notices the student's broken neck hanging over his right shoulder. Seeing this, he feels both relief and fear. Relief that his classmate is alive, but fear because the boy in front of him is no longer human. He mentally apologizes and closes the door behind him. That encounter teaches him that those people are nothing more than zombies now. The next day arrives, marking the third day since the apocalypse began. He prepares a meal using the rice cooker. In fact, he's trying to use the foods that require cooking first, since he plans to rely on them while the gas lasts. Afterward, he can turn to packaged goods. There's a persistent thought in his mind. He can't afford to waste time waiting for help. If the food runs out before then, he'll be doomed. On one hand, he's relieved the entire building is now zombie-free. It was only the rooftop student, and he's already gone. To draw the attention of rescue teams or other survivors, he considers lighting a fire on the rooftop. He's also thinking about leaving the building soon. He had already given up on life a few days ago, so even if he dies out there, it doesn't matter anymore. Besides, he's already survived 2 life or death encounters, which only gave him more confidence to fight these monsters. If things get intense, those zombie creatures don't scare him anymore. Suddenly, his phone rings. Miraculously, it's his mom. He doesn't waste a second before answering. His worried mother asks how he is. He quickly reassures her, saying he's home alone for now, and asks where she is. She reveals that she found the army during the evacuation the day before yesterday and is now in a shelter in Segun. She tells him not to worry and suggests he stay home, promising to ask the rescue team to come get him. With just that brief conversation, the call drops again. Even so, Minjun is happy to hear his mother's voice, a clear sign that she's alive. Out of nowhere, he starts receiving messages. They're from his 2 otaku friends. If they're sending texts, it means they're still alive in their homes. It seems those guys are so comfortable where they are that they're still cracking jokes in the middle of all this chaos. His 2 friends live close to each other, so Minjun is certain they helped each other in this situation. Besides them and his mother, there's one more person whose whereabouts he wants to confirm. Ina, the woman who always humiliated him. Of all the people he knows, she lives the closest, but he's not sure if she would ever return to his place, considering how much she hated it there. He remembers the past when Seong Bin and his gang were having fun in his apartment. One of them had invited Ina, but didn't tell her it was Minjun's place, someone she despised. Everyone was laughing while Minjun panicked at the news of her coming. When she finally arrived and saw the cramped, dirty place, she simply stared, hesitating at the smell of cigarettes, the sticky, moldy floor. She didn't even step inside and turned back immediately. At the time, Minjun was devastated by the look of disgust on her face. What hurt him most wasn't Park Bin and his crew taking over his home, but Ina's reaction upon seeing it. Now sitting on the toilet, he wonders if she's still alive, but even if she had turned into a zombie, Minjun wouldn't be too shaken. After all, his father is the director of a hospital. He still hopes his dad might discover which virus caused the outbreak, becoming one of the candidates to find a cure. But in the end, shouldn't he be more worried about his own survival than hers? Being the spoiled rich girl she is, she probably already escaped safely. But then a familiar voice calls out to him. He begins to feel unsettled as he recognizes it. It's coming from outside the apartment, through the window. She tries to call him, attempting to stay quiet. Even so, her voice ends up attracting zombies which start running in her direction. Desperate, she screams for him to open the door. Finally, Minjun opens it, pulls her inside, and locks it again. The woman is so terrified she's literally sweating. No matter how deeply she tries to breathe, nothing calms her down. Suddenly, Yena wakes up startled, asking if Minjun is okay and why he is there. With strength, the girl grabs the boy's shirt, still somewhat dazed. Right after, she buries her face in his chest, looking very shaken while Minjun remains confused. Her hand keeps tightly gripping the boy's clothes as if seeking safety. Minjun shows surprise, not fully understanding the girl's sudden reaction. Completely confused, he wonders what the hell happened for her to act like that. In a wider view of the room, we see the 2 on the floor with the girl still clinging to him. Worried, Minjun asks again if Henrietta is feeling okay. Gradually, she lets go of his shirt, seeming to regain her composure. Raising her face, Yena thanks Jung Minjun for the help he gave her. Honestly, she admits that if it weren't for him, she might have met a tragic end. The boy gets a bit awkward but relieved, saying that now she is safe, so it's all right. With a serious look, Yena observes the surroundings. Turning to Minjun, she asks if now it's just the 2 of them in the house. He explains that his mother left for work 3 days ago and hasn't returned, but he managed to contact her and she is safe with the military. Yena replies that she understands and is glad to know that he didn't sleep either. The boy takes the opportunity to ask about Han Yena's parents and how they are doing. The girl hesitates a bit before mentioning something about her mother, but she deflects, saying that both are fine and asks for water since she hasn't drunk anything in days. We see a wall clock showing nearly 3 in the morning at that moment. Minjun grabs some water bottles he had saved for her. Thirsty, the girl starts drinking the water desperately without stopping for a second. The boy is shocked, wondering how much water she can drink at once. He remembers they need to ration because if the water gets cut off, it'll be a big problem. But Minjun reflects that she probably risked her own life to get here. A bit awkwardly, he asks if she came straight from her house to his. Still confused, the young man asks why she chose his apartment in particular. Her answer is shocking. Yena reveals she had been hiding outside all this time. She starts to explain that it all began 3 days earlier, the day they bumped into each other. That day something happened. That's why she went back home to change and went out again. The girl begins to tell her story, recalling the screams heard on the street. Suddenly, everything started happening out of nowhere. People were running in despair. Running without thinking, Yen ended up hiding on the staircase of a nearby mall. She waited for a rescue that never came. Minjin asks, shocked, if she was alone there. Fortunately, Yena found a single unlocked door near the staircase where she was hiding. That door led to a small meeting room. With no other option, she hid there. Luckily, there was a water bottle inside. Yena survived on just that. But on the third day, thirst and hunger reached their limit. Yena decided to leave and run home. Upon leaving, the girl saw the street full of fallen people and others walking strangely. With an anguished face, the girl wonders why that path had to be like that. With little choice, she supposes she'll have to go through that narrow and dirty alley. That's how she ended up stealthily reaching Minjin's neighborhood, recognizing the area. To return to her apartment, Yena would have to pass through that chaotic side of the city. With no better option at that moment, the girl had to take that route anyway. Yena realizes she's getting close to Minjin's house. She somewhat remembers the way. Yena wonders if Minjin is still at home since he went there 3 days ago. The girl says she dodged the strange people until she got near his house. Relieved, Yena sits while Minjin praises her courage for going out. Sighing, the girl admits it was a relief to find him at home. With messy hair and sweating a lot, she asks if there's still water in the house. It's noticeable that her clothes are quite damp from the sweat. The boy just looks at the girl with a focused expression. Minjin comments that she sweated a lot and asks if she wants to change clothes. The girl seems surprised by the boy's question, blushing a little. Annoyed, Yena calls him crazy and kicks him, saying he deserved to get hit. Too tired to argue, she asks if she can take a shower if the water is working. A bit awkwardly, the boy just agrees and tells her to go ahead. She thanks him, and Minjin sits pensively, wondering what all of this was. Soon after, we see the bathroom door being closed by the girl. Alone in the living room, the boy remains seated looking toward the bathroom. Minjin reflects on his plans. He wanted to leave, but now he can't leave Yena alone. Food is another problem. He only has supplies for one person for a month. Now time is cut in half. The boy feels the whole situation is completely hopeless for the two of them. Still processing, he finds it unbelievable that Yena is now showering in his house. A memory comes to mind. At school, Minjin always walked alone through the empty hallways. Back then, whenever he tried to approach, the girl would simply ignore him blatantly. The girl wouldn't even look in his direction and treated him like he was some kind of insect. Back to the present, Yena comes out of the bathroom wearing lighter clothes, surprising the boy. The girl asks to borrow some clothes from Minjin. She needs to wash hers urgently now. Nervously, the boy starts looking for something for her to wear while Yena just asks for anything. Minjin hands her a gray t-shirt. He seems a bit embarrassed by the situation. Yena complains about the musty smell of the shirt and asks if there's another one. Minjin is left awkward. The girl smells the t-shirt again. She seems to dislike the unpleasant odor very much. Despite the strong smell, Yena decides to wear the t-shirt anyway until her clothes dry. She suggests using a spray. Minjin defends himself, but Yena blames the place in her sensitivity to odors. Yena calls out to Jung Minjin, who responds a bit surprised. The table shows remains of their meal. The girl then asks what they will do now. She believes all that's left is to stay there and wait for rescue. Minjin confesses that before she arrived, he was thinking about moving to another place the next day. Yena is shocked by the idea. She asks if he's gone crazy and why risk leaving when there's food there. She emphasizes that she barely survived to get there. That's why she refuses to go out again. Minjin tries to calm her down, explaining it was just a thought before she showed up, not a current plan. The boy seems to accept the situation now that she's present. He concludes they'll have to hold on and wait for help. Worried, Yena raises an important issue about what they'll do if the food eventually runs out. Sitting face to face in the room, the girl insists on the question about their future without supplies. Minjin considers that the only way to last longer would be to look for supplies in other houses or upstairs. He admits he's not sure about the safety outside, noting that the screams from other buildings have recently decreased. Yena's expression turns to shock. Minjin concludes that if the food runs out completely, they'll have to go out. Getting up quickly, Yena vehemently denies the possibility of leaving. Minjin reminds her she couldn't stay where she was either, reinforcing that going out will be necessary if food ends. She prefers to postpone that worry, saying they should think about it only when the time comes. Agitated, Yena argues that he hasn't even been outside to know what it's really like. Yena confirms his thought and says those people are like zombies from what she's seen. Sitting down, Minjin replies that they still need to learn more, but from what he saw through the window, if you get bitten, you turn into one of them. With a distant look, the boy confesses that honestly, he doesn't even care if he gets infected. Surprised, Yena says that it doesn't matter since he has nothing to lose anyway. Minjin then deduces that the key is simply to avoid contact and remembers she managed to get there. The boy adds that she herself said she was only seen when she was almost at his house. He explains that not all the infected attack the same, some just walk and others seem collapsed depending on their injuries. Moreover, Minjin observes that their running speed is actually slower than that of a normal person running. Therefore, the boy concludes that the two of them can completely avoid the infected while Yena seems to reflect on this. Trying to lighten the situation, he asks if Yena ever played tag when she was a child, leaving the girl confused. Smiling a little, Minjin suggests thinking of it as a game of tag. Maybe dodging them could even feel a little exciting. Yena doesn't like the comparison to tag, thinking the idea is crazy. She says she's being serious about the fear she feels. Either way, the girl says she's going to sleep now. She asks if Minjun can get her some blankets. The young girl mentions she hasn't had a decent night's sleep in days. That's why she's really starting to feel sleepy now. Surprising Minjun, Yena asks if he's gone crazy for trying to sleep next to her. Pointing to a corner, the girl tells him to sleep far away from her right there. The boy gets a bit awkward. He reminds her that the house isn't sleeping in front of the bathroom is a bit much. With a sigh, Yena finally seems to understand his point of view and gives in a little. Changing his mind, Minjun now says he'll sleep in the bad spot and she can have the comfortable one, leaving Yena surprised. The boy deflects by saying he'll just sleep on the stairs, but Yena insists he should just sleep there comfortably. A small argument begins over who gets the more comfortable place. Minjun even jokes about sleeping in the kitchen. However, he backs off quickly when he realizes Yena took the kitchen idea seriously. In the end, Minjun ends up lying improvised on the floor near the house door. Resigned, the boy thinks that's how he ends up losing and sleeping alone. At least he's still inside the house. Even so, he mentally thanks Yena for not being alone anymore, even though he thinks she talks a lot. The door remains blocked with several boxes and lots of adhesive tape to ensure safety. A single lit candle illuminates a bit of the dark and tense living room. On the more comfortable bed, Yena remains awake, looking at the ceiling with a worried expression. Breaking the silence, the girl calls out to Jung Minjun, who is also awake in his corner. Minjun hears Yena calling him still awake. He looks surprised. Looking toward the bedroom door, Yena invites him to come in and sleep there. The girl confesses that being alone is scary for her. Meanwhile, the single candle continues burning slowly in the dark. Even in the comfortable bed, Yena cannot relax. Her mind is full. Her face clearly shows the concern that prevents her from sleeping. Her voice echoes in the silence, calling his name, Jung Minjun. The boy remains thoughtful, processing her request. She insists he just come into the room and sleep there. Yena emphasizes that she doesn't want to be alone because she's very afraid. The front door remains heavily blocked by boxes and tape. Accepting the invitation, Minjun is now sitting against the bedroom wall. Yena comments on a scary sound she has heard many times while hiding. With her back turned, she softly murmurs that she misses her mother. Sitting on the floor, Minjun listens to the girl's silent vent. Minjun responds that he can't sleep either. His eyes show a certain concern. Yena confesses that the constant noise from outside keeps her from relaxing and falling asleep properly. She describes the horrible sounds coming from neighboring buildings. This only increases the fear she feels. Despite the fears, the night goes on and Yena finally manages to fall into a deep sleep. The sun rises and Minjun watches the girl sleep. He wonders how long she'll stay out cold. The boy finds it ironic that she's sleeping so well, since she previously said she was too scared to close her eyes. We see the clock on the wall showing 9:05 in the morning. The day has already begun for Minjun. Slowly, Yena wakes up. She sits on the makeshift bed, still a bit drowsy. The girl notices Minjun getting ready near the door. Her expression is full of questions. Confused, she asks where he's going while watching him finish putting on a jacket. Jung Minjun calmly explains that he intends to go back to the rooftop to check the situation. Worried, Yena scolds him. She reminds him that he didn't know if there were still infected people up there. The boy says he'll be fine and will just avoid trouble. He even asks if she wants to come along. Calling him crazy, Yena immediately refuses. Minjun then decides to go alone and tells her to wait. Determined, the boy starts climbing the stairs. He goes alone toward the rooftop of the building. Turning quickly, Minjun becomes alert at Yena's sudden call in the middle of the night. Looking at the door, he notices a crack that's appeared in the reinforced glass with concern. The boy thinks it won't last long. After all, glass is still glass even when reinforced. Worried about safety, Minjun begins climbing the stairs to check the floor above. Along the way, a strange odor catches the young man's attention. Something smells bad up there. Yena follows closely behind and comments that she has a terrible feeling about it. Minjun's expression becomes serious. He also feels something bad might have happened. They reach the rooftop access, a place that used to feel so calm during the day. Peeking through the door, the boy freezes upon seeing a disturbing scene in the small room. Shocked by the image, a drop of cold sweat runs down Minjun's frightened face. Lying on the floor is the rooftop neighbor's girlfriend. She seems to have not made it. Faced with the sad situation, Minjun decides the least he can do is say a quick prayer for her. With sorrow, the young man moves away from the entrance of that now silent room. Yena asks if there's anyone in there. He confirms but explains that the person has already passed away. To spare the girl the sight, Minjun thinks it's best she doesn't go into that room. Somewhat hesitant, the girl begins to say something to the boy. On the rooftop, Yena suggests making smoke signals to call for rescue, but Minjun finds the idea complicated due to the lack of timing with a helicopter. The young girl then shouts looking for survivors. Minjun immediately scolds her for the risk of attracting monsters nearby. And so Yena and Jung Minjun had to keep surviving alone in that place. She then asks what his MBTI is. The boy replies that he's never taken the test, which surprises Yena and prompts her to tease him about not having social media or followers. Curious, she asks what brings him joy in life or if he has any hobbies. Minjun replies that he likes playing video games. Yena laughs when she finds out he plays a zombie game, considering the irony of their current situation in a real apocalypse. Talkative, the girl assumes he's introverted and she's extroverted. She then asks if he prefers to plan or be spontaneous. She then wants to know what Minjin thinks her MBTI is. He thinks about how she never noticed him before, but now only has him to talk to. The boy keeps pondering this whole unexpected situation. He reflects that he ended up alone with the girl he liked, while she chatters and swings her leg near him nonstop. In the past, Minjin thinks that just imagining a conversation like this with Yahello would have made him extremely happy. Even with the world destroyed and death close by, he questions whether having these feelings still makes any sense now. Annoyed at being ignored, Yahello calls him a crazy loser for spacing out right in front of her. Meanwhile, the front door remains heavily blocked with boxes and duct tape to ensure their safety. A few days pass and Yahello is lying on the floor peacefully reading a book. Suddenly, she calls out for Jung Minjin asking if he's finished washing the laundry. The girl also complains that she's hungry while Minjin hand washes the clothes and grumbles. Annoyed, the boy thinks he might just leave her behind and run away alone someday. He wonders if he's become her servant, because Yahello should be washing her own clothes. Without electricity, he has to wash everything manually by candlelight, but the water still works. However, their emergency food supply is becoming dangerously low. Minjin tells Yahello that he's heading out. She asks him not to take long and be back in 30 minutes. She seriously threatens that if he makes her wait again, he'll be in trouble, and Minjin reluctantly agrees. The boy approaches the reinforced glass door that has some cracks and marks. Carefully, he opens a gap and peeks outside before stepping out to check things. Minjin explains that he patrols the neighborhood once a day using only safe routes. After observing and studying the infected for several days, he's learned a few things. He discovered that they behave similarly to zombies, attacking only the living. With poor vision, they don't notice you from 50 to 100 meters away, but it varies between them. Replying to Minjin, Yahello explains that they are very sensitive to sound, that's why it's crucial to stay quiet. Also, during the day, the number of infected is 2 or 3 times lower than at night. She goes on to say that they seem to move into shadows during the day, maybe they don't like sunlight. Because of that, Yahello emphasizes that he must never go out at night under any circumstances. However, Minjin notices something familiar about the infected's traits as he observes them. The boy remembers an online game he used to play a lot before all this happened. Maybe it's just his imagination, but the monster's behavior seems very similar to the game. The boy thinks he might be too immersed in that game, it must be just a strange coincidence. He considers that it can't be. But if the infected are connected to the game, the end of the world is coming. The next day, the front door of the building appears with the glass broken, showing danger outside. Meanwhile, inside, Yahello complains about having finished her comics, feeling bored. Looking at the wall clock, she realizes time is passing very slowly in there. The girl grumbles at that jerk Jung Minjin is late again getting back. She thinks he's been listening to her less and less. Maybe she needs to train him better or something. Suddenly, the familiar sound of a helicopter echoes once again, but she wonders what the point is. The next day, the city looks calm from a distance, but tension still hangs in the air. Time passes slowly, and the clock already shows almost 4:30 in the afternoon. Alone in the apartment, Yahello starts to look visibly worried about Minjin's delay. In her thoughts, she curses the boy and wonders why he hasn't come back home yet. More than an hour and a half has passed, and the girl paces nervously, thinking the worst. Irritated, she complains that Minjin only understands things after getting hit and decides she'll stop him from going out tomorrow. Meanwhile, the sun begins to set, painting the city sky in orange tones. Yahello's worry increases even more as night approaches. With a trembling voice, she mentally pleads for Jung Minjin not to be hurt. The candle keeps burning while Yahello remembers that more infected appear after dark. Curled up in a corner, she quietly begs for the boy to come back home soon. The fear of being alone consumes her, and she pleads not to be abandoned there. Suddenly, a noise at the door makes Yahello raise her head quickly, startled. The door opens and Minjin comes in, panting, calling out for Yahello and asking her to look at something. The boy seems surprised or maybe confused by what he found upon returning. Turning to the boy, Yahello looks at him with an unhappy expression. She asks if he's gone crazy, wondering if he really wants to get in trouble for being 3 hours late. The girl moves forward to deal with him, but Minjin asks her to wait a second and look at something. Showing a piece of paper, he explains that a helicopter dropped leaflets earlier, and that's why he was late picking them up. With wide eyes and a tear rolling down, Yahello seems shocked by the boy's sudden revelation. Not understanding anything, the girl grabs the leaflet and asks what the hell it is. Looking directly at Minjin, the girl is still processing the information she just got from him. Annoyed, Yahello repeats that he's very late and asks if he has a death wish. About to scold him physically, Minjin interrupts, asking her to calm down and look at what he brought. The boy explains his delay by saying he had to fetch the leaflets dropped by the helicopter earlier. Holding the paper, Yahello's face shows a mix of shock and apprehension as she reads the content. Confused and a bit scared, she asks again what the warning on the paper means. The leaflet says that the gangbuk area will go into lockdown, requiring immediate evacuation. Yahello realizes that's where they are. She notes the deadline is tomorrow. Minjin points to the back of the paper, telling her to check the safety status. The back shows that their neighborhood Jongmun-dong is koshin, but surrounding areas are labeled very dangerous. Yahello turns to him with a serious look. She warns that things could soon get even worse there. Holding the paper, the girl concludes that waiting for rescue is the worst choice they could have made. Worried, Minjin asks if they need to flee Gangbuk immediately. He wonders if that's even possible. The boy recalls hearing that Yuzhongbu is also dangerous. He tries to figure out where exactly the blockade will be. Given the situation and the information about the north, Minjin realizes they need to believe what they read. Concluding his thoughts, the only option left is to try crossing the Han River to the south. Minjin analyzes the fastest routes but realizes that Yongsan and Sangdong are also very dangerous areas. Fortunately, the paper shows that Yangqi and Dong, not too far from there, seems to be at a safer level. Surprised by his analysis, Yen admits she thought Minjin was a nobody, but he's smarter than she expected. Crouched and determined, the boy reinforces that either way, they need to leave there immediately. Yenna gets nervous. She asks if he's thinking of leaving right now since it's nighttime. She suggests leaving in the morning to avoid the infected and questions whether they can really reach Yangqi and Dong. Desperate, the girl asks to wait a few more days. She believes the rescue will still come. Minjin loses his patience and yells her name. He says that if she wants to stay there and meet a bad end, she can stay. He seriously warns that he'll leave as soon as the sun rises the next day, leaving Yenna shocked by his firmness. Yenna asks if she should pack her things first and asks Minjin for an extra bag. Outside, the sun has already risen, indicating a new day has begun in the city. The door remains blocked by boxes and tape, ensuring their safety for now. Minjin then turns and asks if they can go. Yenna hesitantly agrees. Before they leave, however, the boy seems to have something more to say to her. The boy asks if she's sure about not going to the hospital where her father is. He reminds her that she mentioned her father worked there and suggests checking if he's okay. Yenna's eyes show a quick change, maybe touched by his concern. Forcing a smile, the girl dodges the topic, saying it's all right and hurries to leave. She explains that in their last conversation, her father said he fled with her mother to a shelter. The girl insists again that they leave right away, leaving Minjin a bit confused by her reaction. Outside, the sun shines brightly through the buildings and electrical wires on the street. Carefully, Minjin steps out first into a dirty alley with red marks on the ground. Peeking around a corner, he spots one of those creatures stumbling in the distance. Quickly, the boy gives a thumbs-up signal to Yenna, who is right behind him. The scene shifts to a devastated street with an overturned ambulance. Bodies and red stains indicate the chaos outside. Cautiously, Minjin and Yenna sneak through the destroyed street. They need to be careful as infected roam nearby. Minjin points out the way forward through the debris-filled street. Yenna quickly agrees, following the boy. A wider view reveals the city street blocked by a crashed bus. Fallen trees also hinder the passage. In detail, we see the bus's broken, blood-stained window. A birthday add contrast with the horror scene. Minjin reflects that moving now is easier. He admits being very scared before and warns about dark places. The boy explains that there usually aren't many infected where the sun hits hard, but that doesn't mean they never attack. Yenna asks if their destination, Yangqi and Dong, is still far away. Minjin asks for patience while she complains about not having a bicycle. Minjin agrees that transportation would help, but without communication it's difficult. He also wonders why all the bikes disappeared from there. Sweating and visibly tired, Yenna asks for a 5-minute break. She thinks they're walking too fast. The girl insists, saying that her legs hurt a lot from the walk. Minjin just watches her silently for a moment. With irony, Minjin suggests they go have a coffee and simply keeps walking. Yenna stays behind, irritated, calling him a bastard. Yenna complains that now he's starting to annoy her and threatens him for when they arrive. Minjin just tells her to stay quiet so they don't attract zombies. Again, a more distant shot shows the buildings of the silent city. Only their footsteps echo faintly through the empty streets. Focusing on their feet as they walk, Yenna asks once more how much longer it will take. Minjin confirms they still have a long way to walk. Walking through the blocked street, Yenna asks if they're almost at their destination. Minjin replies not yet and asks her to hang on a little longer. As they walk, listening to Yenna's complaints and avoiding dangers, the boy thinks she asks for water but Minjin refuses, saying it's precious now. Getting closer, they see a street completely blocked by a truck and old furniture. Do not enter, signs are visible. The two youths stop at the sight of the huge makeshift barrier that blocks the way. Minjin comments on the size of the barricade made there. The boy identifies the area as Yangqi and Dong and believes the blockade suggests it's a safer place. Yenna expresses relief at the news. Excited, she asks if there might be survivors and suggests checking quickly. Minjin reflects that survivors would likely be guarding the area. Minjin notices the absence of infected and the usual full smell. He starts climbing the barricade, asking Yenna to stay alert. Already on the other side, Yenna calls Minjin, pointing to a spot. She suggests they rest there as she's very tired from walking, but he refuses. Annoyed by his refusal and comment, the girl asks what he meant by exaggerating. Watching Minjin already distant after jumping over the barricade, Yenna stands still, looking quite upset by his attitude. Moments later, the two stare at each other from opposite sides of the barricade, near some empty bottles on the ground. With tears in her eyes, Yenna seems shaken, recalling that they're back in a situation similar to Chapter 0. Minjin looks at her with a serious expression, perhaps processing what she said or the situation itself. Lowering her head, the girl apologizes to him for her behavior or complaints. Surprised by the sudden apology, Minjin doesn't understand the reason behind it. Yenna, with teary eyes, apologizes again. Her voice carries the weight of the fear she feels at that moment. Terrified, the girl points behind her, screaming. Minjin turns his face with an expression of pure panic. A horde of blood-covered creatures runs toward them. Their guttural screams echo through the deserted street. Without thinking twice, Jung Minjin grabs Han Yena's wrist firmly so they don't get separated. Pulling the girl with him, the boy starts running desperately away from the imminent danger approaching. They flee through the chaotic street, dodging obstacles. The infected continue the relentless pursuit right behind. Yena screams in shock as she runs. She can't believe the supposedly safe neighborhood is so infested. Ahead, they spot a man hurriedly trying to block an entrance. He seemed to be a survivor. The man gestures frantically and yells for them to go quickly in that direction. He seems eager to help. Minjin pushes Yena to safety but says he'll help the man close the door and block the passage. The girl is surprised to hear his name. Jung Minjin yells for Han Yena to hide quickly inside. The boy and the other survivor grab a heavy wooden shelf, ready to use it as a barricade. Counting to 3, they push the furniture with force, just as a creature reaches the entrance. The horrifying creature tries to force its way through the gap. Its deformed face stares at the man. Seeing the scene up close, Minjin screams, desperately for the creature to back away from the man immediately. An infected roars fiercely, thrashing violently on the ground. The improvised barricade gives way, and someone screams desperately for everyone to run away. Yena panics, yelling for them to run to the back immediately. Without thinking twice, the two dash down the narrow alley. They climb a pile of furniture as an infected gets dangerously close. At the top of the barricade, Yena says they need to jump and Minjin nervously agrees. The two jump together, landing hard on the other side. After the fall, Yena screams in pain, saying she twisted her ankle, leaving Minjin shocked. Seeing the situation, the boy can't hold back a scream of pure terror. In front of them, 2 infected run toward the motionless pair. A close-up of Minjin's eye reveals a flash of memory or decision. A memory comes back, reminding him how frustrating it was and that he had to fight back. The memory is of Yena thinking he was pathetic for not having the courage to fight. Recalling how miserable his life was, he draws a knife, thinking it doesn't matter if he dies there. The girl watches him with a surprised expression at his sudden change. In a low voice, Yena calls the name of Jung Minjin, who is lying near the door. Minjin's mind returns to a tense moment, facing an enemy while thinking he wouldn't die running away. Putting the knife back in his coat, the boy considers the possibility of meeting his end in that situation. Back to the present, Yena watches Minjin with a worried expression on her delicate face. Seeing him silent, the girl insists, softly calling the name of Jung Minjin once again. At that moment, his thoughts were firm. He wouldn't die running away like a pathetic coward. Suddenly, the sound of a motorcycle approaching quickly grabs everyone's attention. A shout warns Minjin to duck as the motorcycle dangerously appears from behind. Caught completely off guard, Minjin's face shows only shock and momentary confusion. Quickly, the motorcycle rider hits the enemy with a bat right in the head. The attacker celebrates the hit while another guy nearby yells for them to also get Jung Minjin. The attackers shout heavy insults and threaten to brutally wipe out Minjin. With a sinister laugh, the attacker comments how insane the impact was and how beating others like that is so fun. Turning, the attacker finally notices Han Yena standing nearby with a scared expression. Surprised, the attacker recognizes her, calling Han Yena by name and asking what she's doing there. Confused, Minjin wonders who this unknown guy that suddenly appeared might be. Realizing who's approaching, Minjin thinks to himself that he's completely screwed now. With a bat in hand, Park Seongbin appears. He calls Minjin an idiot and asks why he's with Han Yena, laughing a bit. Minjin regrets encountering someone he wanted to avoid more than the infected themselves in that tense moment. Seongbin notices the knife in Minjin's hand and starts mocking him, asking if he planned to fight monsters with that. The bully then asks if the two just randomly met, finding their pairing quite odd and funny. The girl thanks the group, saying she would have been gone without their help, but Seongbin just mocks, saying he saved her life. Changing the subject, Seongbin invites Yena to go with him to a safe hideout with other survivors. The boy then wonders if that place is really safe while Seongbin assures it is because there are adults there. One of Seongbin's buddies mentions that gangbook is closing, suggesting they leave, but Seongbin says it's too late in a suspicious tone. Seongbin offers Yena a ride on the scooter, which she accepts. Minjin asks where she's going, and the bully tells him and his friend to use the kick scooter. Seongbin's look shows he might be plotting something or hiding his true intentions from the group. Han Yena seems a bit thoughtful, maybe suspicious of the situation or just processing everything that recently happened. Seongbin's friend asks if it's safe to bring Yena with them. Seongbin fakes surprise but agrees, leaving the girl confused. Seongbin brushes it off, saying it's nothing, and hurries the girl to hop on the scooter without giving any further explanations about the matter. Yena asks about Minjin, wanting to know how they're going to take him along. The other guy seems surprised by the idea. The girl suggests abandoning Minjin. She thinks he'll only slow them down and they still need to save food. Mockingly, the girl wishes Minjin good luck surviving out there alone with a small laugh. The guy with the bat decides they'll take him. He argues that it doesn't hurt to have one more person in the group. Watching everything, Minjin refuses the offer. He says he's not going with them, leaving the other guy confused. Minjin says he'll handle everything on his own. He mentions that he has a specific place to go now. Yena shows concern about his decision and calls his name. Her expression is one of distress. Ignoring the call, Minjin turns his back and starts walking away from the group, going his own way. The back guy gets annoyed at being ignored. He reminds Minjin of the last time and makes a serious threat. The aggressor says the country is finished so he can do whatever he wants. He threatens to beat Minjin like he did with the monsters. Minjin stares down the bully with a cold and serious expression. He doesn't seem intimidated by the threat. The group gathers, staring at Minjin. The leader calls him a loser and tells him to come over to them now. Yena is shocked by the threat. She asks Park Seongbin if he's gone crazy for wanting to attack him. Minjin remembers that it was Seongbin who attacked him before. He realizes the guy is still the same as ever. Elsewhere, or in a memory, a boy suggests to Changmin that taking Yena along would be the perfect chance for something. Still awake, Yena asks if Minjin also saw the strange guy who was following them earlier. The boy isn't sure who she's talking about, looking thoughtful about her question. She describes a man with a hat covering his face and wearing a strange suit. With the description, Minjin remembers having seen someone suspicious like that near his house before. Meanwhile, Park Seongbin chats with his friends, mocking Minjin because of Yena. He mentions having seen photos of her on Instagram and confirms she's just as attractive in person. A friend asks why Seongbin is messing with her and if Minjin wasn't already involved with her. Back on the street, Minjin seems apprehensive upon seeing Seongbin's group approaching them. Seongbin falsely apologizes for overreacting earlier in front of Yena. Minjin, with little choice and looking cornered, agrees to go along with their group. Seongbin looks at Minjin with an air of being in control of the situation now. He says it's better that way, claiming leaving the neighborhood at that moment would be too dangerous. The bully suggests they first go to the hideout to rest, promising to take him wherever he wants afterward. They start walking through an area that seems to lead to a more isolated and suspicious place. Confused, Minjin asks exactly where they're going, already feeling suspicious of the location. Responding to the moment, Minjin says he has a bad feeling. He thinks the guys outside might try something against the two of them. The girl tries to calm him down. She mentions Park Seongbin has been her lackey since elementary school. She promises to protect him if he tries anything. She asks about other survivors in the supposed hideout. Minjin questions if she really believes that. He knows their character. The boy insists. He asks if Yena still sees Park Seongbin as just some childhood acquaintance. The girl's expression turns serious. It seems Minjin's words made her think about her real situation with Seongbin. We see Park Seongbin from behind, walking down the hallway with a bat in hand. Yena then calls out loudly to him. Surprised, the group turns to face them. Yena awkwardly says they're just going back to their place now. The girl explains her plans. She heard her parents are in the Seopyeong shelter. She needs to go today before it's too late. Minjin is completely surprised by the news. He asks if there really is a functioning shelter in Seopyeong. The boy counters the information. As far as he knows, the Seopyeong area was completely destroyed during the incidents. Seongbin cuts in. He asks why Yena would risk going with a nobody like Minjin. He suggests she go with them tomorrow instead. Nervous, the girl tries to change the subject. She says it's urgent and they need to leave right now. Polling Minjin, Yena tries to get out of there quickly with a nervous laugh, but their group doesn't seem convinced. However, a rusty baseball bat suddenly appears, blocking their path and stopping them from passing. Seongbin stares firmly at the girl. He repeats that he already warned her. If she's gonna leave, it'll be with his group and only tomorrow. Minjin asks if something is going on between the two of them and what suddenly got into them. Frightened by the sudden question, Yena only mutters Park Seongbin's name. Clenching her fist, the girl says she'll go with him and asks if Minjin is being serious. With an expression like he already expected this, Minjin thinks he figured this would happen. Agreeing, the boy suggests they just go along with Seongbin to talk. Yena seems apprehensive. She comments that the sun will set soon anyway. Soon after, the three leave the house and walk down an alley with Seongbin in front holding a bat. Reaching the destination, Seongbin stops and looks at a building under construction ahead. Minjin confirms it's the right place and notices barricades on both sides to keep the infected out. Analyzing the makeshift structure, he thinks it looks hastily assembled despite the effort. Next to him, Yena remains nervous looking at the building while a drop of sweat runs down her face. Noticing her nervousness, Minjin gently holds the girl's wrist to calm her. Looking at her, the boy tells Yena not to worry about the situation. He then promises he won't leave her side, no matter what happens there. A little calmer from his words, Yena still seems tense about what's to come. Unexpectedly, Yena lets out a loud scream. The girl confesses she got really scared. Horrified, Yena sees the infected outside. She asks if the place is safe and demands Minjin do something. Getting closer, another guy tells Yena to relax. He assures her the infected won't be able to break in. The girl, however, doesn't calm down. She thinks the barricade looks like it's going to collapse at any moment. Looking from above, the group realizes the gravity of the situation. They're completely surrounded by infected below. One of the guys complains about the improvised shelter. Then he tells everyone to climb a nearby ladder. Minjin realizes the idea is to go up to the second floor. He thinks if they pull up the ladder, the infected can't climb. Wasting no time, Minjin starts climbing the makeshift ladder. Soon after Minjin reaches the upper floor, he's followed by Yena and the guy who alerts Ha-young about them. The trio enters a new makeshift room on the upper floor. 2 more people are there, including a big guy sitting. The large seated man notices their arrival. He loudly asks what's going on, mentioning the new guests. The boy explains they're from the same school and class. He asks the man if he's heard of Yena, surprising him. Excited, the man introduces himself as Lee Bonju. He says he really wanted to meet Yena and even followed her on social media. The boy mentions he had told Yena about Bonju before. The girl, however, doesn't remember and finds him pretty weird. Bonju assures them the place is totally safe and tells them to relax. Yena hesitantly mentions rumors about Gangbook being sealed off. Minjun replies that he's also still awake and asks if something happened to her. Yena stays silent for a moment before asking if Minjun has ever killed someone before. Surprised by the sudden question, the boy quickly denies it. He's never taken anyone's life. The girl explains that she can't stop thinking about the men she encountered earlier. Minjun listens attentively as Yena recalls the scary incident she experienced. She confesses that one of them grabbed her and how she felt completely powerless in the situation. Seeing how shaken she is, Minjun tries to comfort her, saying it's over now. Yena mentions it was all Park Songbin's fault. She feels betrayed by him. A hand grabs Yena's arm tightly, pulling her away from there. Turning around, Yena asks to talk for a bit with Park Songbin, who ignores her. Impatient, Songbin asks what she wants. Yena asks him to stop and let her leave. The girl says she honestly didn't know it would be like this and hates that kind of environment. She says she can't stay and doesn't believe the story about the blocked bridge. Yena says she's going back to where she was going before and turns to leave. When Yena calls for Minjun to leave with her, Songbin grabs her arm, stopping her. Suddenly, a bully glares at Yena and aggressively asks if she thinks she can just leave. He continues saying the world doesn't work how she wants while the girl looks at him, scared. Forcefully, the man grabs Yena's arm, preventing her from leaving. Minjun then steps in, trying to pry the man's hand off and asking him to let the girl go. The big guy looks at Jung Minjun, surprised by the sudden boldness of the boy with glasses. Annoyed, the man asks if Minjun has finally lost it for meddling where he wasn't called. With a frightened look, Yena stammers while being held by the arm. But soon, someone else grabs the arm of the guy who's holding her. Trying to intervene, Minjun asks the aggressor to let go of her arm. Surprised by the interference, Xiaobin just lets out a mocking laugh. Staring at the boy with glasses, Xiaobin accuses him of losing his mind. Somewhere else, we see some survivors observing a pile of rubble. Provoking the boy, Xiaobin asks if he's going to use the knife from earlier. Yena screams for him to stop. Continuing the provocations, he calls him a coward and challenges him. Suddenly, 2 others arrive and Minjun wonders what's going on. Yena complains about the dirty place, but the big guy says they'll sleep in the tent. Additionally, the chubby guy reveals that Minjun is carrying a kitchen knife. Shocked by this, calling the boy 4 eyes, Bonji demands that he hand over the knife or else. In his thoughts, Minjun knows he can't give up his only weapon, but also can't fight 5 people alone. One of the thugs explains the hierarchy, saying that Bonju is the boss and he's second in command. Bonju then declares that the country is in a state of emergency, and without leadership the place becomes hell, giving 2 warnings before eliminating someone. Uncomfortably, the chubby guy pats Yena on the shoulder, telling her to go rest. Questioning if she cursed, Yena quickly denies it, explaining that she just got scared because of the recent panic days. Showing off his luxury camping tent, he invites her again to rest inside. Realizing the guy is nuts, Yena quickly thinks of a way to buy time and calls him Oppa. Stammering a bit, the girl says she's hungry and asks if she can eat something, surprising Bonju. Excited by the idea, Bonju says they got a lot of pork belly. Minjun suggests a party and everyone celebrates. Seeing the situation, Minjun thinks to himself that this is the worst case scenario. This place has no police, it's basically a lawless zone with 0 safety. A bit awkwardly, Bonju apologizes to Yena and calls her cute. Especially for Yena, these thugs are as dangerous as the infected. Minjun realizes she's in danger. Worried about the girl, he thinks he needs to find a way to get her out of there immediately. He considers luring the infected to cause panic, but gives up thinking of the other survivors. Minjun also isn't sure if the 3 older survivors are trustworthy. Maybe at night, when everyone's asleep, it'll be time to escape, but he fears they'll do something to Yena before that. Letting out a sigh of frustration, Minjun feels powerless at the moment. Meanwhile, the pork is being prepared on the grill. Bonju sits next to Yena. She complains about the smell, but quickly covers it up by praising the food. The chubby guy tells Minjun to bring some meat to the older men. Looking at the plate, Minjun thinks the portion is very small and stingy. Deciding to help, he takes some of his own food to give them as well. Approaching the 3 men, Minjun looks a bit hesitant. He offers the 2 plates of food, saying it's not much but asks them to accept it. One of the older men thanks the boy for the kindness. Later that night, the starry sky covers the silent city. An improvised fire and a barrel lights up the campsite. Away from the main group, Yena and Minjun sit silently. The chubby guy calls out for Yena, who looks at him with apprehension. He asks why she's alone and invites her to relax with them, but Yena refuses. Saying it's already time to sleep, she says she'll stay there, planning to escape once everyone falls asleep. Annoyed by her coldness, Bonji complains that she's treating him badly. Songbin watches. Unexpectedly, Songbin steps in and tells Bonji to stop. Surprised and confused, the chubby guy turns to Songbin, not understanding. Repeating more firmly, Songbin tells the fat guy to back off from her. Furious with the audacity, Bongyu asks if Seongbin has gone crazy. Insulting the boy, Bongyu doesn't understand his behavior. The other thugs are also confused. With a strange smile, Seongbin reveals that ever since they got trapped there, he decided he'd eliminate Bongyu first. Discarding the previous hierarchy, Seongbin declares himself the new leader of the group. Enraged, Bongyu charges at Seongbin with a roar of anger. The quick movement signals the beginning of their fight. Swiftly, Seongbin gets the fat guy in a chokehold, telling him to go to hell. One of the other thugs is shocked and yells, asking if Seongbin has lost his mind. Before he could do anything, the thug takes a strong blow to the head. Chaos breaks out, someone yells to finish them both, and the other thugs attack with clubs. Horrified by the scene, Yen and Minjin watch the fight. Someone asks if they should stop them. With wide eyes, Minjin realizes this is the opportunity he was waiting for. Turning to the girl, he says now is their chance to escape. In the middle of the confusion, Seongbin notices the two making a move. The two start running to flee, but the older men yell to catch them. One of the men manages to grab Yena by the arm, making her scream. Scared, Minjin looks back when he hears her scream. The man holding her now has a knife, telling her to stay quiet if she doesn't want to get hurt. Threatening again, he yells at her not to move or he'll use the knife. In a desperate act, Yena bites the aggressor's arm hard, making him scream in pain. Minjin watches the scene, and the man turns to him in anger. Cursing at the boy, the man charges with the knife to attack him. Surprisingly, Minjin manages to block the attack, grabbing the man's arm. Yena is shocked to see Jung Minjin's unexpected action. The aggressor is also surprised and irritated by the boy's resistance. Asking where a wimp like him gets courage, the man kicks Minjin hard. The impact throws the boy back, who groans in pain. From the blow, the man's knife falls to the ground. A few drops of red broth scatter across the floor. Shocked, Yena covers her mouth, starting to call Minjin's name. Minjin places his hands on his stomach, revealing a wound there. The other men notice Minjin's injury and approach. Calling the boy names, one of them punches Minjin. The men start beating Minjin while Yena screams in despair. Taking advantage of the distraction, Seongbin grabs Yena's wrist. With a disturbing smile, Seongbin reveals he's been after her since high school. He complains that other girls gave in easily, but not her, asking if she thought she was better for being rich. Comparing himself to her, he boasts about having money, eating well, and having a better body than the others, with nothing to be ashamed of. He then asks why she always acts superior around him, leaving Yena terrified. With a terrifying expression, he says he'll see what core Yena is really like. She screams in horror. The older man, Manager Kim, tries to intervene again, shouting at Seongbin. Annoyed by the interference, Seongbin kicks the older man hard. Manager Kim falls to the ground groaning in pain, while the other two men worry. Staring at the fallen man, Seongbin reminds him of the previous warning about interfering. He declares it was the second warning, and now it's time for Kim to go away permanently. Grabbing Manager Kim's clothes, Seongbin lifts him off the ground. With force, he throws the older man far away, who screams during the fall. Yena's eyes widen in pure horror at witnessing the scene. Down below on the first floor, Manager Kim's body lies motionless on the ground. Injured and surrounded by approaching infected, Kim begs for help. The other two men scream furiously at Seongbin, shocked that he threw Kim to the infected. The aggressor orders his partner to deal with the others too. Surprised, the thug asks what he means by that. Annoyed, the man yells, explaining what else could it be. He orders them to throw everyone except Yena to the first floor. On the floor, Minjin groans in pain from the hard impact. Yena desperately calls his name, asking if he's okay. As Minjin tells her to run quickly, Yena appears completely terrified. The aggressor then cynically asks her where she thinks she's going. With a sinister smile, the man stares directly at Yena, claiming it's hell out there. He says she'll stay here with him, whether she wants to or not. Lying face down, Minjin screams in complete despair. The boy begs to be let go. Looking at the boy lying on the floor, the aggressor calls him by name. Then, he warns threateningly that now it's his turn to rest. Mocking the boy on the ground, the aggressor calls him a pathetic loser, ironically asking who told him to act tough. He calls out to Yam Tang, ordering him to help throw Minjin down as well. Grabbing the incapacitated boy, the two men prepare to throw him. The aggressor comments that he thought Minjin was light, but he's heavy as hell, and they begin counting. 1, 2, 3. Surprisingly, at the last moment, Minjin's hand closes tightly, grabbing the shirt of the man holding him. Caught completely off guard by the unexpected resistance, the aggressor freezes. Minjin then firmly declares that the bastard is going down with him. With a strong pull, Minjin manages to unbalance the aggressor, taking him down with him as he yells, "To the abyss." One looming menacingly over Minjin's fallen body, Sung Yan declares that Jung Minjin will now meet his end there too. Sung Yan mocks Minjin, calling him a loser and feigning pity, then shouts for Yam Tang, ordering him to help throw the boy off. Together, Sung Yan and Yam Tang struggle to lift Minjin's body. The aggressor comments that Minjin is heavy, starting the count 1, 2, as he shouts 3. Minjin's hand in a final effort grabs Sung Yan's shirt tightly. The injured boy states they'll go together. Completely surprised by the unexpected resistance, Sung Yan's eyes widen. A sound of pure astonishment escapes his lips. With a determined shout of "to hell," Minjin pulls Sung Yan down with all his might. Both bodies plummet towards the ground floor. From above, Yam Tang watches the scene with a frozen expression, his face showing utter shock at the sudden turn of events. Desperately, he shouts to Sung Bin, asking what happened. Yam Tang reports that Kim Sung Yan fell to the ground floor along with Jung Minjin. On the ground floor, the sound of impact echoes as the two hit the hard ground. Screams and groans of pain cut through the air for a moment. Kim Sung Yan lies on the ground, his face contorted by the excruciating pain of the fall. He clutches his side, visibly injured. Looking down at his own legs, Sung Yan feels terrible agony. The man wonders what's wrong with his limb after the tumble. Nearby, Jung Minjin is also sprawled on the ground, hurt but still conscious. He slowly turns his head towards Sung Yan. Despite his own pain, Minjin extends his arm with difficulty. His hand firmly grips Sung Yan's leg, immobilizing him. Sung Yan looks down, startled to see Minjin holding his leg. Angrily, he asks where the boy thinks he's trying to go. His face tight with rage, Sung Yan curses loudly. He accuses Minjin, claiming his leg is broken because of that act. Suddenly, a new threat emerges. An infected creature approaches, drawn by the noise, while a terrified Sung Yan begs Minjin for help. On the floor above, the two remaining delinquents watch in panic. One asks what they should do, while the other yells to abandon the idiot. Henyina witnesses the entire horrific sequence unfold before her. Her eyes are wide with horror, and a single tear rolls down her cheek. Taking advantage of the attacker's distraction, Yena quickly turns and starts running. She flees for her life, desperate. Song Bin, however, immediately notices the girl's escape. He curses and, without hesitation, begins to pursue her with grim determination. Quickly, Yena climbs onto narrow scaffolding, seeking an escape route in the darkness. With careful steps, the girl moves along the metal platform, trying not to make noise. Suddenly, Song Bin appears and shouts Yena's name, asking if she's still there. The pursuer grinds his teeth, furious at the girl's audacity in trying to escape him. Crossing a plank, Yena hears the man call her crazy and question where she thinks she's going. She reaches the edge, eyeing the neighboring rooftop as her only hope. Tears stream down the young woman's face as Xiang Bin threatens that he's going to catch her. Without hesitating, Henyina propels her body forward and starts running along the narrow ledge. With a brave leap, the girl launches herself across the gap between the buildings. As she lands, she stumbles for a moment and lets out a small cry of fright. Though terrified, determination shines in Yena's eyes as she keeps going. Songbin watches in disbelief, cursing as he realizes she's managing to get away. With a roar of anger, the aggressor vows he will catch her no matter what. The man runs and also jumps between the structures, following her tracks. However, looking down during the jump, Xiaobin realizes something is wrong. His foot slips on the edge and the pursuer loses his balance, falling into the void. A dull thud echoes as Xiaobin's body hits the ground with full force. From above, Yena watches the fall and realizes this is her chance to ensure her escape. Cupping her hands around her mouth, the girl shouts loudly, "Over here, over here!" Immediately, the infected on the lower level turn their heads towards the sound. At the sound of Yena's cry, the infected quickly surround Songbin on the ground below. Fallen, the man looks up hatefully, seeing Yena and screaming her name. From the rooftop, the girl points at the aggressor, alerting the creatures to his presence. Enraged, Songbin curses Yena and swears he will definitely end her life. Drawn by the yelling, the undead advance thirstily towards the trapped pursuer. Realizing the imminent danger, the man curses and desperately tries to escape the horde. Yena watches the scene unfold, but her concern shifts to Jung Minjin's whereabouts. Clasping her hands in supplication, the young woman prays that her friend is safe somewhere. A desperate cry for help echoes from below, making Han Yena wonder if it's Minjin. Unexpectedly, she spots Jung Minjin himself nearby, calling for her to climb up. Relieved to see him, the girl asks if he can climb up to where she is. With difficulty, the boy's hand grabs a metal bar, beginning his ascent. Minjin pulls his body up with great effort, struggling to reach the safety of the roof. Yena encourages him, telling him to push just a little bit harder to make it. Quickly, the young woman extends her hand, offering support to pull her companion up. Joining forces, Minjin finally manages to reach the rooftop, standing beside Han Yena. Completely exhausted, the boy collapses to the ground, while she approaches worriedly. She asks about his injuries and if he was caught, but he says he managed to avoid them, feeling dizzy. Suddenly, an angry voice emerges from the darkness. It was Songbin's henchman looking for him. Even badly injured, Minjin tells Yena they need to get out of there as quickly as possible, and she agrees. With a dull thud, Yena and Minjin collapse onto the cold ground, the darkness of the alleyway enveloping them. Promptly, the girl turns to her fallen companion, worriedly asking if he's okay. Supporting her injured friend, she asks him to hang on just a little longer so they can keep going. With difficulty, Yena supports Jung Minjin, guiding him slowly through the darkness of the night. The night sky hangs above them as they desperately search for a safe refuge. Supporting the boy, Han Yena mentions she thinks she sensed infected nearby, as the night is dangerous. His face pale and sweating cold, Minjin murmurs his friend's name, the pain evident in his voice. The boy suggests that if the creatures see them, she should escape alone, leaving her shocked. Determined, the young woman states she will find a place for them to hide and save him somehow. Suddenly, they spot a path that seems free of the creatures' scent, indicating their absence. A solitary light flickers intermittently in the dark alley, offering a partial view of the area. Carefully, the pair continues their journey, with Yena still supporting Minjin's weight. Unexpectedly, Han Yena stops, an expression of surprise and apprehension crossing her face. A slightly open door appears ahead, perhaps a shelter or another unknown danger. Entering the place, a faint light illuminates a dark and apparently empty hallway. Cautiously, the girl peers into the new environment, searching for any threats. Relieved, she whispers she doesn't sense anyone nearby, questioning if they are finally alone. The young woman then helps Minjun into the room, suggesting they rest there for a moment. Exhausted, the boy can't hold on any longer and collapses to the floor, clutching his injured stomach as she calls his name. Kneeling beside him, Yena gazes at her friend with apprehension, pleading for him to be okay. Minjun remains lying face down on the floor, clearly in a lot of pain. With teary eyes, Yena stares at her friend, deep sadness etched on her face. The girl then whispers with a choked voice that this is all her fault. Sitting beside the boy, she blames herself for him staying at her house and for attracting the infected towards them. The young woman continues her lament, stating that because of her they went to the construction site and that he suffered at school too. Clutching her friend's shirt tightly, Yena begs him to please hang on. Tears stream down the girl's face as she stares at Jung Minjun in utter desperation. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps makes Yena look intently into the darkness of the hallway. The young woman's attention turns to the dark corridor, where the noise seems to have come from. Apprehensive and still beside Minjun, she asks aloud who is approaching. Her gaze remains fixed on the gloom, anxiously waiting for an answer or any movement. The unsettling silence of the hallway only increases the tension in the already fear-laden atmosphere. With a slightly firmer voice, Yena repeats the question, wanting to know who is hiding there. A dark stain begins to form on the floor beneath Minjun, indicating his wound is worsening. Suddenly, a figure emerges from the darkness, wielding an axe and approaching the pair. The newcomers, two men with axes, seem quite surprised to find Yena and Minjun there. Yena stares at one of the men, a clear expression of recognition appearing on her face. A quick memory flashes in her mind, showing the man who helped them near a barricade. The mental image confirms it's the same individual who offered them help in a moment of danger. Relieved, Yena exclaims that he managed to survive, while the man seems confused by her greeting. Surprised, the man notices the injured boy and sees that he's losing a lot of red fluid. Immediately, he asks if Jung Minjun was bitten, but Yena denies it, explaining it was a stab wound. Desperate, the girl pleads for help as her friend is in bad shape, and the newcomer asks about a first aid kit. Concerned, the individual asks the young woman if she is okay, and Yena, relieved, thanks him for his help. Suddenly, one of the man's companions grabs Yena, forcefully covering her mouth. Meanwhile, the other henchman laughs and comments on their luck, asking what they should do next. The same guy suggests taking the girl, but she resists and annoyed, he considers knocking her unconscious. Out of nowhere, the leader of the small group, who had previously helped Yena, curtly orders his men to stop. Facing his subordinates, the man gives them only 3 seconds to disappear. Confused, one of the henchmen asks what they should do with the leader, and the other suggests finishing him off. Without hesitation, the first attacker lunges quickly towards his now former leader, ready for a confrontation. On the floor near them rests the nail-spiked bat, an intimidating and dangerous weapon. Quickly, the man defending Yena draws a small knife, showing he's prepared for combat. The henchman who charged tries a quick, direct blow against his former boss. With agility, the leader manages to dodge and counter-attack, hitting the aggressor squarely. Wounded, the hit henchman coughs in pain, while his partner still holds Yena hostage. Annoyed by the situation, the man holding the girl shouts for the ex-leader not to move. Yena's defender raises the knife, warning the henchman that if he does anything stupid, he'll regret it. Taking advantage of the distraction, Yena manages to break free from her captor's grasp. The young woman looks back, her face expressing a mixture of surprise and fear at the turn of events. Surprised, the young woman stares at the newcomer and calls him Kang Hakchiul, noticing a mysterious glow around him. A translator's note: the glow seems like a stylistic choice, translated directly. The group moves to a safer room, apparently a makeshift storeroom or office in the back. On a table, we see various first aid supplies such as bandages, scissors, and antiseptics. Jung Minjun rests on a makeshift mattress, covered and apparently sleeping to recover. Hakchiul explains that Minjun is more in shock from the blows than from blood loss and needs rest. Yena thanks him. Curious, the young woman asks how he knows so much about first aid and where he learned it. He says it was by chance. The man then states that this neighborhood is extremely dangerous and questions what she was doing around here. Yena recounts that they saw helicopter flyers about Yongchin Dong being a safe zone and were captured by Park Song-bin's group. She continues, explaining that when they escaped, it was chaos with everyone being attacked, and Seong-bin also fled. Kang Hakchiul ponders, staring into space, that this means the aggressor might still be alive. Wiping a cloth, he states that the story of Yongchin Dong being safe is just a false rumor. The man details that those who stayed in Seoul tried to contain the infection with barricades, but the system collapsed. He warns that there are now more dangerous people than infected, and girls like Yena aren't seen on the streets. Hakchiul warns that if they capture her, she doesn't know what they would do, as northern Seoul is a lawless zone. Sitting, the young woman hears that soon all of Seoul might become like this, and thinks about how terrible the situation is. With a worried expression, Yena asks Kang Hakchiul directly why he is there. The man looks down with a serious expression, and replies that he has his own reasons for being in the area. Suddenly, he reveals that the next morning at dawn he will leave for Gangnam, leaving Yena perplexed. The girl, astonished, asks if he heard the news about the Northern Zone closure, which was supposed to start today. With a grim look, Kang Hakchiel simply comments that it means the situation has worsened considerably. Kang Hakchiel continues, mentioning he doesn't know if the entire north is closed, observing nearby containers. Adding information, he reveals that the bridges to Gangnam have been blocked for 2 days, depicting a chaotic scene of cars and infected. The man explains that Han River Park is full of infected because when the Taeao started, everyone fled south. Faced with this, the government closed the bridges, causing more panic and resulting in hordes of infected near the river. Surprised by so many details, Yena asks how he knows all that, and the man replies he heard from survivors. The young woman, with a tear rolling down, asks if all that is true, showing her growing despair. Despite the bleak scenario, Hakchiel claims that not all is lost, showing a lit lamp. A translator's note, assuming lamparina refers to a portable light source, lamp or lantern fits. Using lamp for now, he suggests that with a small boat, they could cross the river, of course, avoiding the infected along the way. Still apprehensive, Han Yena asks if Gangnam is really safe, since there are rumors of infected throughout the country. Kang Hakchiel reveals that his sister is in a shelter there, and he needs to get to her no matter what, surprising Yena. Interested in the story, the young woman asks how he and his sister ended up separated and all that confusion. Beginning his account, the man says that the day after the outbreak, he, his sister, and his uncle went to a temporary shelter. Soon after, the army arrived at the location and announced they would evacuate some people to the southern region. However, only children and the elderly were taken first, which is why he stayed behind while his sister called out to him. Shocked by the situation, the young Hakchiel desperately asked where they were taking his little sister. A nearby soldier coldly informed him that her destination would be the Gangnam shelter in the southern zone. With a sad look, Kang Hakchiel concludes that part of the story, saying the army never returned for them. Yena, moved, then asks about his uncle's fate, wanting to know what happened to the relative. He continues, explaining that shortly after, infected appeared in the shelter and everyone started screaming and running desperately. His uncle and he tried to escape together, but unfortunately the older relative didn't survive the attack. Kang Hakchiel informs them he will leave at dawn as every second is crucial. Surprised, Yena questions why so suddenly. The young woman then asks him to take them along, since they also want to go to Gangnam. The man replies that it would be impossible. He justifies this by saying that with 3 people, the danger becomes considerably greater. Situations like the previous one would repeat, and it would be obvious that at least one of them wouldn't survive. Additionally, Jung Minjin needs rest. Hakchiel acknowledges that the word crest sounds ridiculous at the current time. Desperate, Yena pleads with clasped hands, revealing that Minjin's mother is in Gangnam and they need to get there no matter what. Honestly, she admits not knowing what to do with just the 2 of them. The young woman confesses they don't know how to escape from there, feeling completely lost, and begs him. Faced with the girl's plea, Kang Hakchiel observes her with a serious and thoughtful expression. The man comments that Han Yena has changed considerably since the old days. He continues, mentioned that even though they were classmates, he didn't know her well. Her current demeanor is very different from how she was in school. Hakchiel decides they will talk more at dawn when Minjin wakes up. He then asks them to rest for a bit. Kneeling beside Minjin's makeshift bed, Yena shyly thanks her classmate for his consideration. Through the window blinds of the office, the faint morning light begins to break, signaling the start of a new day. In the room they use as a refuge, Minjin sleeps on one side while Yena rests on the sofa, both exhausted. Asleep on the sofa, Yena is suddenly woken by Kang Hakchiel calling her name. With a start, she wakes up. The man asks if, when escaping the construction site, she saw what happened to Park Songbin, and she hesitantly confirms. He then questions the reason. Kang Hakchiel firmly declares that he is going to check the situation personally right now. Surprised by the decision, Yena doesn't understand. The man explains that if Seongbin's motorcycle or scooter is still there, he'll bring them back, as he needs to confirm something. Alarmed, the young woman begs him not to go. The barricades were destroyed and the place is full of infected, warning that everyone there must be turned, including Park Songbin. She seriously warns that he could meet a tragic end if he insists. The young man looks away, seeming to ponder. Hakchiel downplays the danger, stating it's only 300 meters away. He then asks if she'd like to hear something and questions if she knows how he escaped North Korea at age 12. Yena is dumbfounded to hear that Kang Hakchiel traveled 10,000 kilometers to escape. Unable to hire smugglers, he and his uncle crossed the Tumen River like ghosts, an arduous journey. During those 2 years and over the 10,000 kilometers, the man reveals he lost a younger brother. Holding a modified bat, Hakchiel asks her to take care of Jeong Minjin, promising to be back soon. In the office, Han Yena waits on the sofa, worry etched on her face as she watches him leave. Outside, the construction building, site of the recent tragedy, is Kang Hakchiel's destination. With dexterity, the young man climbs one of the building's side protections, determined to investigate. His feet touch the ground lightly, moving cautiously through the hostile and silent environment. With his back turned, he murmurs as so, preparing to uncover the truth about the place. Reaching the top, Kang Hakchiel wonders if Park Songbin really met his end there. Back at the refuge, Minjin begins to wake up slowly on the makeshift bed, still groggy. The young woman notices the movement and hears an "you" from the boy, indicating he's awake. Surprised, Han Yena asks if he's already awake, and Minjin, confused, asks where he is. She quickly explains that Kang Hakchiel treated his wounds, and her classmate is startled to hear the name. Minjun tries to remember, mentioning the fall from the second floor, but his memory is hazy due to shock. Extremely relieved, the girl holds his hands tightly and the boy reacts with surprise. With teary eyes, Yena confesses how worried she was, fearing he wouldn't survive. Faced with her emotional declaration, Jeong Minjun becomes visibly flushed and speechless. She still squeezes his hand, and the young man, confused by the intensity of the moment, just murmurs. Unexpectedly, Yena shoves him forcefully away, letting out a scream of fear. Still yelling, Yena questions Minjun about letting himself get hurt like that. She thanks him for the help, but says he shouldn't have risked so much and asks what she would do if he died. With a guilty expression, Minjun apologizes for the situation. Quickly, Yena denies the need for apologies and just thanks him, asking if he has any idea how difficult it was to carry him. Visibly agitated, the girl mentions that Kang Hakchiel told him to rest for a day. She adds that they will assess the situation the next day. Surprised by the information, Minjun questions, is she serious? Worried, the boy mentions the closure to the north and states they don't have time. Suddenly, the boy feels a twinge of pain and doubles over, letting out a groan. Startled by his reaction, Yena asks if he's okay. Scolding him, Yena calls him an idiot and orders him not to move yet. The young man can only mumble something in response to her order. On a nearby table, a box contains some assorted supplies and tools. The place seems to be a small makeshift office where they are staying. Unexpectedly, someone knocks on the door of the room they are in. Both Yena and Minjun turn their attention to the entrance, curious about who it could be. Announcing his arrival, Kang Hakchiel enters the room saying it's him. Surprised, Minjun murmurs that so this is the famous Kang Hakchiel. Without much ceremony, the newcomer throws a backpack onto the floor. The object seems to contain some important belongings for someone there. Turning to Minjun, Hakchiel asks if that's his backpack, the one he always used at school. Jeong Minjun excitedly confirms the backpack is his. Kang Hakchiel explains he found it on the second floor of the construction site and brought it back. He mentions it contains clothes and personal items in case he needs them. Adding more information, the man says there was also a lot of emergency food and he took some. Minjun remembers his mother bought that, feeling nostalgic. With one last item, Hakchiel reveals he also found Minjun's glasses. He holds out his hand, showing the pair of glasses he recovered from the site. Visibly relieved, Jeong Minjun stammers a sincere thank you. Taking the glasses, he thinks about what a huge relief this is for him right now. Now wearing his glasses, the boy comments that Yena told him Hakchiel treated him and asks how he is doing. Kang Hakchiel replies he's a little dizzy, but fine. Changing the subject, Yena questions Kang Hakchiel about his trip to the construction site. She asks directly what happened to Park Seongbin. With a serious and direct gaze, the young man faces her question. Kang Hakchiel simply confirms with a brief "yes" before continuing his explanation. Recalling the scene, he states that, as expected, Park Seongbin was not at the location. A brief image shows his search in the construction building. The memory reveals a horrible scene at the construction site, with everyone else already infected. Kang Hakchiel concludes that all the others turned into creatures. He continues explaining that the motorcycle was gone, maybe Seongbin took it, and the scooter was destroyed. Yena asks if they might encounter Park Seongbin again, and Hakchiel confirms it's possible but tells her not to worry. With a determined look, Kang Hakchiel states that he might lose a fight, but when it comes to finishing someone off, he always wins. Minjun just murmurs, frightened. Anyway, the man reinforces that, as he said yesterday, he is going to escape to the north. The translators note a correction. He previously said he was going to gang them. This seems like an inconsistency in the original text, assuming he meant gang them as planned. Then he turns to the two and asks if they will be able to accompany him on this journey. Minjun readily answers that of course they will and that they should leave immediately, but Yena scolds him, saying he needs to rest today. Hakchiel agrees with the girl, stating they can leave when the young man recovers, but Jeong Minjun insists he's fine and that tomorrow could be worse. The newcomer suggests not rushing and making a plan first because haste makes waste. Kang Hakchiel then reveals he thought of an option and that there's another way to cross the Han River, leaving the other two curious about how they would do it. Turning to the board, he draws a simple map and says they will use Line 5. Jeong Minjun, wearing glasses, expresses surprise and asks if he means the underground river tunnel. The boy asks if it's safe, as high-density places like the subway must be full of infected, but Hakchiel explains that Line 5 has platform screen doors, and the tunnel should be clear. Kang Hakchiel admits the problem is getting there, and that others might have had the same idea, or the government might have already blocked it, but he thinks it's worth a try. He informs them that the nearest Line 5 station is Jangin, and as they know, it's too far on foot and will be more dangerous upon entering the Jangin neighborhood. Outside, the sky takes on a pinkish hue over the buildings as night approaches. On the whiteboard, a list of survival rules is shown, with the first item being, don't take unnecessary risks. The man then declares that these are his survival rules and begins to explain them. He reminds them that the north is already closed, a translator's notee, still referring to the north closure despite planning to go south. Translating as written, but noting the potential directional confusion in the source, and asks them not to rush because of time constraints. If they find a safe place, they should stay for a few days to recover. Sitting on the sofa, Minjin and Yena listen attentively as Hachiel dictates the second rule: when exploring, only one or two people should go out, avoiding all three leaving together. With a serious expression, he says the most important part comes next. Pointing to the third rule on the board, which reads, "Your life is at stake," he concludes that in extreme situations, they must never sacrifice their lives for others. Jiang Minjin listens intently to the newcomer's example. He explains that if someone can escape, they shouldn't try to save someone else. With a serious expression, Kang Hachiel states that even he will prioritize his own survival in any risky situation. Sweating coldly, the boy with glasses hears the man repeat never to sacrifice yourself for anyone, reinforcing the harsh rule. In the small kitchen of the hideout, morning light enters through the window, illuminating the sink and some utensils. Suddenly, Hachiel calls for Jiang Minjin, who turns around, surprised by the older man's call. The man then hands him a modified baseball bat, telling the boy to take it as a weapon. Startled, Minjin and Hanyena observe the object. The young man asks if that's really a bat with nails. Kang Hachiel explains that the weapon isn't just for the infected, but also the intimidate dangerous humans. Just holding it will make them think twice. He continues, reminding them that the infected will attack to kill, and when Minjin counterattacks, he must use all his strength. The boy with glasses reflects on the words. The man says a strong blow to the heart or head will suffice and asks if he understood. After the tense conversation, the newcomer decides it's time and tells the two it's best they get going. Outside, the blue sky with a few clouds hangs over the buildings of the abandoned and silent city. The trio then begins to walk down the deserted street with Hachiel in front, followed by Yen and Minjin, who carries the bat. However, a doubt arises in the boy's mind. He wonders if it's okay to finish off the infected like that. The boy recalls that they were once normal people with families and don't attack by choice, as some graffiti suggests. He thinks that if he does this, wouldn't he become a murderer? Looking at a door marked with a warning about infected. Jiang Minjin questions what would happen if the judicial system still existed, wondering if he would be charged with homicide or judged later. Noticing the young man's hesitation, Kang Hachiel calls his name, making him look back. The more experienced man scolds the boy, telling him not to think about nonsense and forget that useless worry. With a stern look, Hachiel declares that this is a matter of life or death, and if Minjin doesn't harden his heart, he certainly won't survive. Hanyena murmurs softly that she understood the instruction given by the more experienced man. With her back to the young man, the girl asks him to wait a moment, getting his attention. Turning around, she asks if they can avoid that specific street, as there must be many infected. Kang Hachiel, carrying a large backpack, questions how she would know that for sure. The young woman explains it's the smell, a peculiar odor that gets stronger near the infected, and it's very strong there. The man in the blue shirt then asks if she can sense their exact location. As they walk down the deserted street, the trio remains alert to the dangerous surroundings. Jiang Minjin replies that it's more of a hunch on her part. She doesn't detect them well if there are only a few. Then he remembers something. The boy recalls that Yena has always been very sensitive to smells, even before the current situation. Hachiel decides to check and says he'll take a look up ahead alone. Cautiously, the older man peers from behind a post, analyzing the path ahead. His expression turns serious as he observes what lies around the corner. On the street ahead, several infected wander among the cars, with a body lying on the ground. The group leader focuses his gaze, thinking about what Hanyena had just told him. He turns to the girl, asking if she can really sense the infected. She asks if she was right. Confirming the danger, Hachiel states that going that way would be a terrible idea. Minjin then points upwards. The boy with glasses and the older man look up at the top of a building. Hachiel asks what he sees. On the rooftop, the silhouette of a soldier is visible. The young man questions if that soldier is also infected. Kang Hachiel shows slight confusion at the observation made by the boy with glasses. Urgently, the more experienced man calls the two to come with him, surprising the young pair. Inside the building, the trio observes a messy room, with bottles and gas cylinders scattered on the floor. Kang Hachiel assures them there are no infected on the upper floor and calls them up, while Hanyena, surprised, questions why they are going up. Jiang Minjin uses binoculars, focusing his vision on the soldier he had spotted on the rooftop. After taking the binoculars, Kang Hachiel observes and says he sees at least 3 soldiers, all infected. Observing more closely, Hachiel notices that one of the zombie soldiers is carrying a rifle on his back. Jiang Minjin, hesitant, asks if they plan to steal the weapon and suggests it would be better to just leave. The boy argues that with 3 infected it would be difficult to retrieve, plus they don't know if the rifle has bullets or if firing it would attract more. Contradicting the young man, Kang Hachiel dismisses the problems and surprisingly states that he knows how to use that type of weapon. In the room, the more experienced man declares that the weapon is essential for them, and then decides they will go get it. Detailing his observation, Hachiel comments that with the binoculars he sees at least 3 soldiers and they are all infected, but there is one detail. He then reveals that one of the soldiers carries a rifle with him, and this leaves the others surprised by the information obtained. Minjin quickly asks, wary if the older man isn't thinking about stealing that rifle, and suggests that they just leave. The boy with glasses argues that with 3 walkers it would be difficult to get the gun, and they don't even know if it has bullets or if the shot would attract others. Furthermore, the boy remembers that they don't know how to use it, but Hachiel counters by saying no because he knows how to handle the rifle. In front of the young people, the leader of the group declares that the weapon is essential for them and then decides that they will go get it immediately. Meanwhile, a deserted street shows how dangerous the world has become for anyone trying to survive out there alone. Hyena then questions if Hachiel has gone mad and says that Minjin is right about how he would face 3 infected in that cramped space. The girl continues her questioning, remembering that the rifle is hanging from the soldier and that drastic action would be necessary to get it. She concludes that to obtain the weapon they would first have to eliminate the zombie soldier, which represents a great danger to the group. However, the boy with glasses thinks that there is something that worries him a lot in that whole situation. Suddenly he remembers playing a first-person shooter game in his messy room. On the computer screen we see the game interface showing an armed character facing an infected person. That feeling of anxiety still lingers in his mind as he recalls the shooting in the game. Maybe one day they will desperately need that weapon to survive the dangers. Then Minjin agrees to the idea of going after the rifle, and this leaves Hyena completely shocked. The girl asks if they have gone crazy because just climbing up there seems difficult and how they plan to face the infected. Hachiel then says that the 2 boys will go while she stays hidden, and Hyena shows concern. The girl reluctantly agrees to help and asks what she should do to assist in the dangerous mission. The more experienced man explains that the space is narrow and it would be dangerous if the 3 of them went, so she stays behind looking after the backpacks. Looking at the sky between the buildings, they prepare for the difficult mission that awaits them on the roof. On the way up, an infected person appears in the hallway, surprising the 2 who were advancing cautiously. Hachiel quickly sneaks behind the wanderer, trying not to make any noise to avoid being noticed. Going up the stairs, the older man asks if Minjin is okay and he confirms, still a little nervous. Hachiel then questions if the boy isn't afraid of the infected since he moves without hesitation, and he says he's just tense. On the roof, the 3 zombie soldiers roam around as the 2 cautiously approach the edge of the place. Hidden behind a low wall, Hachiel carefully observes the movements of the infected soldiers on the terrace. The 3 uniformed wanderers continue their patrol without noticing the presence of the survivors close to them. Hachiel comments that as expected there are only 3 soldiers, but they are very close together, making a sneak attack difficult. The leader mentions that Hyena spoke of Minjin's skill with knives, and he questions if he will use them, so Hachiel says they will act in 10 seconds. Surprised, Minjin questions if it's only 10 seconds and how they would eliminate 3 infected people in that time. Hachiel then explains that he obviously can't handle 3 alone, and so he needs the boys' help. Detailing the plan, he says he will attack the closest walker first, and the other 2 will go after him. Then the eldest instructs Minjin to eliminate one of the remaining ones with the stick, leaving the boy with glasses apprehensive. Hachiel advises him to focus on just one thing in case something goes wrong and not get bitten, then asks if he can, and Minjin hesitates but accepts. With his hand on the young man's shoulder, the more experienced man tries to encourage him for the difficult task that lies ahead. He then states that he understands the boys' doubts, but now their survival always comes first. Hachiel firmly declares that they will do whatever it takes to stay alive in that dangerous world. Minjin nods and says he understands the urgency of the situation and the need to act. In his thoughts, the boy reflects that since the incident on the roof he has understood that those creatures are no longer human. On the roof, the 3 infected soldiers continue to wander around without noticing the approach of the survivors nearby. Behind cover, Hachiel and Minjin prepare for the attack, with the elder in an elevated position. Jumping from his cover, the most experienced man begins the attack against the wanderers who were there. Noticing the movement, the zombie soldiers scream and turn to face the sudden threat that has appeared. Hachiel quickly advances with his knife in hand towards the first infected soldier in his path. He then delivers a lethal blow with the blade, showing his close combat and very precise combat skills. The soldier who was hit staggers back after the surprise attack by the most experienced and skilled man in the group. With a quick movement, the group leader finishes off the first wanderer, demonstrating his coolness and skill in combat. After taking down the first target, he looks over his shoulder at the other 2 infected remaining on the roof. One soldier is already on the ground, but the other 2 are now furiously advancing towards Hachiel, who is thinking, damn it. He thinks it is necessary to finish off at least one of the walkers while defending himself from their attack on the roof. Hachiel then attacks another soldier, but quickly realizes that his blow was not enough to take him down. While trying to hit one of the soldiers, the older man is grabbed by another wanderer who immobilizes him right there. In trouble, Hachiel shouts Jiang Minjin's name, asking for help against the 2 remaining infected in front of him. In fear, Minjin runs with his modified baton towards the soldier who was approaching him and Hachiel. The boy then lands a powerful blow with the baton directly on the head of the infected soldier who is staring at him. Minjin is a little surprised to see the result of his attack against the walker there on the roof of the building. Even though he was hit, the soldier screamed and continued to advance towards the boy, leaving Minjin shocked by what had happened. Still trapped, Hachiel shouts for the infected to back off and realizes that his previous attack really wasn't enough. The more experienced man continues to fight desperately against the two zombie soldiers surrounding him on the roof. In the middle of the fight, Hachiel thinks that they should eliminate the soldier with the rifle first to have an advantage. With agility, he manages to deflect the barrel of the gun and prepares for a quick and precise counterattack. Soon after, the more experienced man lands a strong blow on the neck of the infected soldier who is holding him. The two then fall to the ground with Hachiel on top, but the fight is not over for them there. Unfortunately for him, his knife slips and falls far away, leaving the group leader frustrated and in a bad position. The last infected soldier screams and furiously advances towards the two fighting survivors. Worried, Hachiel sees a walker attacking Jung Minjun, while another one quickly approaches him from the side. In this moment of despair, the older man feels his only option is to pray for a miracle to happen. He quickly picks up the fallen soldier's rifle and hopes the weapon has at least 2 bullets left. Without hesitation, Hachiel cocks his rifle, ready to use it against the infected that threaten their lives there. On the ground, Hachiel screams as 2 walkers surround him, and one of them points the rifle directly at him. Meanwhile, Minjun fights an infected soldier and is amazed by the incredible strength of that hideous creature. Being grabbed by the Wanderer, the boy with glasses desperately screams Kang Hachiel's name seeking help. The scene then shows Minjun fighting with a soldier while Hachiel is still on the ground, with 2 others screaming loudly. Fallen but with the rifle in his hands, Hachiel thinks that Jiang Minjun was really brave for a rookie in that situation. He then takes firm aim with his gun and declares that this is just the beginning of the group's fight for survival. Down below, Henyena is startled by a very loud noise coming from the direction of the roof of that abandoned building. Looking out the window, the girl realizes that there were 2 shots and the sound is truly deafening to her ears. Worried, she quickly grabs the binoculars and looks around, hoping that her companions are safe up there. Through the lens, Yena sees Minjun and Hachiel standing on the roof and is relieved to see that they look completely safe. Back on the rooftop, Minjun apologizes for not being of much help, but Hachiel says that distracting one of them saved him. The boy with glasses then praises the older man's incredible aim and asks if he had ever practiced before that. Hachiel replies that he shot a few times when he was 12, and that was his first shot with his left hand, so it was lucky he didn't hit Minjun. The group leader then checks the gun's magazine to see how many bullets are left after the confrontation. Minjun watches closely as the older man counts 1, 2, 3 bullets into the rifle's magazine there. Hachiel warns that the infected are approaching, attracted by the gunfire, and they need to hurry up. He asks the boy to check if there is more ammunition with the fallen soldier, and Minjun readily agrees to the task. In the messy room, Henyena waits for her companions, while worrying about how long it will take for them to return from the roof. Looking out the window with the binoculars, she wonders if they have already come down and thinks about going to meet them down there. When opening the door to leave, the girl comes across something unexpected and screams in fright at what she sees. From the window, the girl sees that the infected are gathering outside on the street, and this makes her very scared. She then thinks that she can't go down now and wonders if she should wait or if her friends will be able to come back. Suddenly, a detail catches her attention and she seems to notice something new and very worrying in the room. On the ground, a legless walker crawls towards you while others also begin to enter the place. The crawling infected then displays a terrifying smile, and this leaves the young woman completely terrified and without reaction. Terrified, Henyena covers her mouth as she sits on the ground and is unable to move in the face of that horrific threat. With her hands on her face, she wonders if that creepy smile on the walker's face was directed at her. The messy room with the window in the background shows the imminent dangers surrounding the girl in that tense moment. Meanwhile, footsteps are heard on the dark staircase, indicating that someone is coming down towards her floor. The darkness of the now empty staircase makes one think that the person has already passed by or is further down in the abandoned building. On the dark staircase, a guttural sound echoes KGH and makes the environment even more tense and frightening. Suddenly, a silhouette appears in the darkness of the stairs and lets out a completely terrifying "Grrrr" roar. In the room, Henyena screams GAH, terrified by the noises that are getting closer and closer to her. Still huddled, the girl trembles with fear and thinks that the situation makes no logical sense to her. She then recalls that they closed the door to the 2nd floor and even blocked the entrance with several heavy things. Even so, looking at the window, the girl wonders, intrigued, how that thing managed to get there. A "Grrrr" roar echoes through the place, and Yena wonders how it is possible for an infected to move like that. Desperate, she thinks no and realizes with horror that danger is coming up the stairs towards her. In the darkness of the staircase, the bare, dirty feet of a wanderer slowly appear at the top of the steps. To her utter horror, the legless infected she saw earlier crawls up the stairs with a hungry look in his eyes. The legless infected continues to slowly climb the stairs and lets out a very frightening guttural KGK sound. In the room, Henyena cries, huddled in fear, as the wanderer limps into the room and approaches her. The infected man looks around the messy room and appears to be searching for something or someone there. Suddenly, he turns towards the girl and displays a creepy smile with his completely white eyes. Close up of the walker's bloody legs as he slowly walks towards the helpless young woman in the corner. Terrified, Yena hides behind some boxes, desperately trying not to be seen by the infected nearby. With her eyes wide open and her mouth covered, the girl watches in terror as that horrible, hungry creature approaches. The walker then leans over the boxes and smiles creepily at the young girl who screams "Aah" in pure terror. In a quick movement, the infected advances on Yena, who is completely defenseless and has nowhere to run. Tears stream down the girl's face as she faces the imminent danger with no hope of escaping the situation. Suddenly, Hachiel and Minjin appear, and the older man asks if Yena is okay, leaving her surprised by his sudden arrival. A closed door is seen and is likely the one Yena mentioned the boys blocked before heading to the roof. Kang Hachiel with a serious look then asks Yena if the infected person really smiled at her, seeming to doubt the story. Yena explains that it seemed like he wasn't infected and was a normal person, and even reminded her of a perverted old man who scared her before. The boy with glasses then comments that they closed the main door and blocked it with objects, and it wasn't the strongest blockade, but the items were thrown and the door was broken. Kang Hachiel reflects that it was as if someone uninfected had done it on purpose, and from what he knows, walkers act on aggressive instinct. He then asks if the infected person retained emotions or other instincts, and Yena responds in horror that no, that cannot be true. The more experienced man then theorized that some infected may be special like Yena said, or maybe they're evolving, leaving Minjin confused. Continuing his theory, he says that they will soon be able to climb, jump, and even coordinate attacks against survivors, and will become more intelligent and advanced. While he says that they are almost in a vegetative state but with pure aggressive instinct, Yena is surprised to ask how he knows all that. Minjin then replies that it's just a guess, and although it seems absurd, he's not sure what to think. The boy with glasses goes on to explain that the infected remind him of a game he used to play a lot. In the room, the three talk about the situation, and Minjin mentions that he was obsessed with the game and maybe it was just his fertile imagination. Hachiel agrees that it sounds ridiculous, and Yena asks if he means they are inside a game, which Minjin vehemently denies. With a serious look, the more experienced man states that in any case, this is the worst pandemic in history and they need to survive it. Yena then asks about the blood of the infected and whether Hachiel will not be infected due to being splashed with the liquid. The leader of the group explains that he has had blood splashed on him before and the contact does not affect him unless he is bitten by one of them. He then shows that they now have a K2 rifle with 15 bullets and also 2 military knives to defend themselves. Hachiel says he has his pocket knife, then hands one of the knives to Jeong Minjin and the other to Yena. Surprised, the girl asks if he wants her to carry that, and he replies that she needs to protect herself and cannot always depend on them. Furthermore, Hachiel says that he will later teach how to use the rifle, and this leaves the two young men surprised. He then explains that if Minjin dies, he may need the weapon and Yena may also have to use it. In the room, the three continue to talk about weapons and the need to be prepared for any situation. Minjin then asks Hachiel not to say bad things because whoever says that always dies first in movies, and he is repeating the cliché. The more experienced man replies that he will not die and will do whatever it takes to survive, but they need to prepare for the worst. The boy with glasses agrees and says he has always wanted to shoot a gun, but they can't practice because of the noise and limited bullets. Hachiel then asks Yena if she doesn't want to shoot, and she looks away thoughtfully about the question. Minjin watches the girl's reaction, waiting for an answer from her about whether or not she wants to learn how to use the weapon. After a moment, Yena replies that she doesn't know, and Minjin is a little confused by her evasive answer. Then the girl asks him not to come near her and turns her face away, looking a little irritated by the situation. Confused, Minjin asks why, and Yena replies that she simply doesn't want to be around him at that particular moment. The boy with glasses becomes even more confused and asks what happened suddenly and if he did something wrong to her. In her thoughts, Yena complains that he acts like he does at school and has no idea what is going on there. She then covers her face with the hood of her coat, looking embarrassed about something she is feeling. Sitting on the couch, the girl thinks that she hasn't showered in days and feels disgusting, so she wonders if she smells bad. She ponders whether it is a life or death situation and is worried about it and how stupid it is for her to worry. The truth is that Yena simply doesn't want to be around Jeong Minjin at that moment for some personal reason. Looking to the side, the boy with glasses wonders since when she cares about him and seems a little uncomfortable. With her face hidden in the hood, the girl thinks about how all of this is really irritating to her right now. Outside, the blue sky with a few clouds and electrical wires between the buildings show a seemingly normal day. On a street, an abandoned white van with the door open and blood stains inside shows the dangers of the place. The feet of the three survivors are seen walking together down the deserted street with great caution and attention to their surroundings. Hachiel asks if that path is okay, and Yena replies that there might be 2 or 3 wanderers inside, but she's not sure. The group leader comments that thanks to Yena it seems easier, and if they continue like this they will advance quickly, but they must not let their guard down. As they walk, Minjin notices that Hachiel is limping a little and worries about the older man's condition. The boy with glasses then asks if he is okay, and Hachiel replies that he is, and that he got hurt when he fell with the infected soldier. He then reveals that he thinks he sprained a ligament, and this leaves Minjun completely shocked and very worried for his friend. The young man says that he should rest and remembers that Hakchul advised him not to overexert himself before thinking it was something serious. The more experienced man replies that it is nothing compared to when he escaped from North Korea, but they should find a place to sleep. Suddenly, Hanyena stops in front of a door with a red X and Hakchul asks what's wrong, and she says there's something there. Suddenly, a loud URG noise comes from inside the door and Hanyena screams H in fright at the sudden scare. A voice then asks, "Hey, you guys are survivors, right?" And the trio looks up confused at the unexpected call. On the roof of a building, a man says he has been trapped there for 2 days and desperately begs for help to get out. Hakchul asks how he ended up there, and the man explains that he went out to get supplies and the infected chased him there. He goes on to say that there are now infected on the stairs, and he can't get off the roof because of them. The man explains that another survivor heard his screams, but said they were infected and closed the gate on the first floor before leaving. Hakchul then asks if there are many walkers on the stairs, and the man replies that there are about 6 or 7, leaving the trio surprised. The leader of the group thinks that if there are infected people inside, the man is definitely trapped, and even if that is true, 6 or 7 is a lot. Hakchul then apologizes and says that with so many it is impossible to help as they are not in a position to take risks. He then says, "Let's go," and starts walking away, leaving the man on the roof shocked and begging them not to leave. The man on the roof begs for help and says he hasn't been home for 2 days and his wife and son are waiting for him, and he hasn't found his daughter. Minjun asks the man not to scream as he is putting them in danger, and Hanyena asks if they are really leaving, and Hakchul says they can't help. The group leader says that they should avoid unnecessary risks and repeats, "Let's go," so that they can continue on their way down the street. With a worried look, Jong Minjun watches the man on the roof and seems to be thinking of some alternative to help him. Suddenly, the boy with glasses asks them to wait and asks if there isn't a way to save the man trapped in the building. Hakchul stops walking and looks back at Minjun, waiting to hear what the young man has to say about the situation. The older man sighs HH, looking a little tired but willing to listen to the boy with glasses' suggestion about the rescue. He then turns around and asks what Minjun suggests to solve that problem and save the man trapped on the roof of the building. Hesitantly, the young man says he has an idea and thinks he can save the man from that dangerous and unexpected situation. With a confident smile, Minjun thinks about his idea and seems certain that he can save the man trapped in the building. Elsewhere, a mysterious man looks at a painting left by the group and wonders about them. He looks through the notes and discovers that their plan is to cross the Han River using subway line 5. Back in the present, the rescue is a success and the group accompanies the man to the door of his house. Very happy, the guy shouts that his father has arrived home while calling for his wife and son. Hakchul, however, stops the boy with glasses from entering and asks him to wait a second outside. The older one says he'll go in first to make sure it's safe, and Minjun agrees with the idea. The father runs inside and the leader of the group thinks that if this is a trap, they will take over the house. Holding his weapon firmly, he enters right behind, prepared for any type of ambush. To his relief, a woman and a boy appear in the room and the son shouts for his father, who has just returned. The man hugs his son and apologizes for the delay, while his wife cries with emotion at the reunion. Observing the scene carefully, Hakchul realized that the man was telling the truth and that there was no danger. Completely inside the house, the 2 survivors look around, relieved to be in a safe place. The father then introduces his rescuers to the family and his wife thanks them very much for bringing him back. The image shows the house's ceiling fan, indicating that the group has finally found temporary shelter. The man's wife introduces herself as Ji Yan and invites them in, saying that the water is working. In disbelief, the hyena asks if she can really take a bath, and the lady confirms with a smile on her face. Holding the girl's hands, the woman shows her gratitude and seems very happy to welcome them there. Jaeyeon compliments Hyena's beauty and asks why such a lovely girl is out there in danger. A little embarrassed, the young woman thanks and also praises the lady while Minjun watches everything in silence. Suddenly, the woman's expression changes to one of sadness, and she seems to remember something bad. She then comments that her missing daughter is about the same age as Hyena. The mother continues saying that the girl started college but disappeared a few days ago, leaving Hyena embarrassed. Trying to be kind, the young woman says that she is sure that her daughter is still alive somewhere safe. The lady thanks her for her kindness and says she will prepare dinner, and Hyena offers to help in the kitchen. Jai Yan refuses the help and says that the girl can borrow clothes from her daughter if she needs to. Hidden behind a piece of furniture, the couple's son watches the group with a shy and slightly scared look. The boy gets scared when he realizes he's been seen and runs to hide in the hallway again. The boy with glasses then asks if that is their son and comments that he looks very young. Sitting on the couch, Hakchul rests for a bit and Minjun approaches to ask how his foot is. Minjun looks at Hakchul's foot and realizes that it is very swollen, leaving the boy quite worried. The older man says he'll be fine and just needs to rest a little to recover from his injury. The boy comments that Hakchul is always very cautious and that experienced survivors are different. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, a person takes the opportunity to finally take a hot shower and relax. Hyena enjoys the water and thinks about how dirty and disgusting she felt before that happy moment. She washes her hair and looks very relieved to finally have some comfort and privacy there. The girl remembers how Minjun ran to lure the infected alone to save the man on the roof. At that moment he seemed very scared, but he still kept running to ensure the rescue. Thinking about this, the young woman becomes irritated and wonders why he acts so recklessly and without thinking. She sighs and admits that she thought he was different, but that in fact he has a lot of courage to do that. After some time, the clock in the living room reads 6:30, and it seems that dinner is finally ready. On the table we see a complete meal, and everyone gives thanks for the food before starting to eat together. The group eats happily and comments that it has been a long time since they had a real meal like that. The father then asks about their plan to get to Gangnam and warns them that all the bridges are closed. Hachul explains that they intend to use the Line 5 tunnel, and the man is shocked by the idea. Hachul looks confused and waits for the man to explain why he was surprised by Line 5. Seo Jae-hoon says that the last contact with his daughter was at Gwangnaro Station on Line 5. Thoughtfully, the group leader realizes that Gwangnaro is the last stop before crossing the Han River. A map shows the route they would have to take and how that was the final destination before the crossing. The most experienced one then says that if his daughter is alive, she will probably be near the station. The professor agrees with the idea and reveals that he also thought about the same possibility. He says he tried to drive there, but the traffic was terrible and he had to abandon the vehicle. When arriving at Jangin subway station, the place was already completely taken over by infected people. The man says that because it is far away and he cannot leave his family, he ended up stuck at home with nothing to do. Hachul comments that 10 kilometers is indeed too far and asks about other roads. The teacher explains that most of the streets are blocked by cars and that it is dangerous to get stuck. The group leader becomes thoughtful and concludes that traveling by car would be too risky at the moment. Changing the subject, the man introduces himself as a university professor and the group is surprised. Everyone laughs and agrees to introduce themselves as the situation has become calmer and more friendly. Outside, night falls and the illuminated house seems like a small safe haven in the midst of chaos. In a room we see the air conditioning on and some pictures on the wall showing a peaceful environment. The lady offers her daughter's room for them to sleep, but Minjun says that he and Hachul will stay in the living room. Jae-yin then insists that at least Hyena should get some rest in the comfort of the spare room. The girl looks at the boy with glasses, seeming a little indecisive about what to do in that situation. Hyena refuses and says that she prefers to sleep in the living room with her friends, leaving Minjun surprised by the answer. The boy insists that she sleep in his bed since she hasn't been sleeping well and she seems a little irritated. He asks why she suddenly changed her mind since earlier she didn't want to be around him. With a quick movement, the young woman grabs Minjun by the neck and calls him scared for wanting to sleep alone. The group leader watches the scene without understanding anything, while the girl complains that Minjun is very annoying. Outside, the house remains safe with the gate closed as the night slowly advances. Looking at the ceiling fan, everyone says goodbye and wishes each other good night. Minjun asks if the house is safe and Hachul confirms, but the boy notices that he sleeps with the gun. The clock on the wall reads 10:30 at night and silence takes over the place as everyone sleeps. In the living room, the group sleeps on the floor and on the sofa, taking advantage of the opportunity to have a peaceful and safe sleep. Finally, at peace, the girl sleeps deeply, looking much more relaxed than before. In the middle of the night, the girl wakes up and seems like she can't go back to sleep. She asks if the others are sleeping and Minjun replies that he is still awake. Lying under the covers, the boy also cannot fall asleep and keeps staring at the ceiling. The young woman sits up and asks why he is awake since he must be tired and suggests they talk. Curious, she wants to know what he was thinking before she called him to talk there in the room. With a sad look, the boy with glasses replies that he was thinking about his mother at that moment. He says seeing that happy family made him think about her and worry if she is safe somewhere. Hearing his outburst, the girl looks at him with a serious expression and seems to understand what he is feeling. With great determination, she promises that she will help him find his mother no matter what happens. The boy is surprised by the sudden promise and looks at her without knowing what to say. A little shy, he turns to the side and quietly thanks her for her kindness and support. Suddenly, the boy sits up and looks at the girl as if he wants to ask her something important. He then asks about her parents and if she still has no news of where they are. Worried, the boy wants to know if she is really okay with the whole family situation. The girl's expression changes to one of sadness and she looks away, seeming not to want to talk about it. The young woman agrees to tell her story and says she can trust him to keep her secret. She reveals that she has never told anyone about her parents and that she will share this with him for the first time. The girl then begins to say that her family is actually reconstituted after her parents' divorce. Upon hearing this, the boy is shocked and the young woman adds that the whole situation is a complete mess. She says that her father was a doctor and her mother was a researcher, and they divorced when she was still young. The scene then takes us to Hyena's past, revealing a tall building and the beginning of her memories. At that time we see Min Jun leaving after class and Hyena asks if he is just going to leave. Very irritated at being ignored, the young woman yells at him and asks if he has gone crazy for not responding. Sighing, she thinks to herself that he is a very weak guy for not being able to defend himself. As the boy walks away alone, she decides that the next day she will deal with the bully Park Sung-bin. After class, the girl arrives at her building and types in the password to enter her apartment. Stopping at the door, she reflects and realizes that she has no right to call him poor because of his problems. She thinks she doesn't want to go in because if her stepmother is there, she will have to leave again as soon as possible. Even though she was afraid, the young woman opened the door and entered her house with a serious expression on her face. At the entrance, she sees shoes scattered on the floor and hears a voice calling for her loved one from inside. Shocked by the scene, the young woman thinks that her stepmother is completely insane for doing that. She explains that the woman openly cheated on her father and he was never home because of work. In her room, the young girl takes off her school uniform while thinking about how complicated her life was. Suddenly, the stepmother bursts in, shouting and asking why she came back from school so early. The woman complains that the young woman should have rung the bell and that the smell of alcohol bothers her. The girl sarcastically says that her stepmother didn't want to be caught red-handed with her lover in the bedroom. The angry woman criticizes her stepdaughter's short clothes, but the young woman responds that she is more decent than her. The lover appears shirtless and the stepmother says it's just her husband's daughter there. The girl quickly takes out her cell phone and takes a photo of the couple to use as proof of the betrayal. With a victorious smile, she threatens to send the image to her father and expose their affair. The couple panics and the woman lights a cigarette, trying to appear calm in the face of the threat. The stepmother named Choi Soo-jin says that she consented as the father won't do anything about it. The girl is surprised and the woman reveals that she has secrets to blackmail her husband and keep him quiet. Blowing smoke, she threatens to tell all the man's secrets if her stepdaughter doesn't cooperate. She explains that if her father gets divorced, he will lose everything and his hospital will end up going bankrupt. Laughing, the stepmother challenges the young woman to ask her father for a divorce and the lover just watches. Out of patience, the girl curses the woman who is shocked by her stepdaughter's boldness. The oldest one tries to attack the hyena, but her lover holds her back and says she is very drunk. The stepmother then insults the young girl and says that she is just like her mother with a horrible personality. The angry woman shouts at the girl to leave once and for all and disappear from her sight forever. Without saying anything else, the young woman slams the door and finally leaves that toxic place. Walking through the park, the girl decides that she will never return to that disgusting house. With a look full of anger and determination, she swears that she will never set foot in that place again. Alone in the darkness, she walks aimlessly and thinks she would rather the world ended. Sometime later, we see the entrance to a karaoke bar where the young woman went to have some fun. At the scene, a friend sings happily while Hyena sees news of sudden chaos on her cell phone. Another friend receives a message and panics because her mother had a serious accident. Walking down the street, the young woman notices many disaster alerts on her cell phone and becomes confused. Suddenly, a panicked scream catches her attention and she looks forward, quite scared. People run desperately towards her, screaming to escape, and she doesn't understand anything. Crouched on a ladder, the young woman breathes heavily and thinks that she barely managed to escape danger. The image shows the emergency staircase where the girl managed to find temporary shelter. She tries to call emergency services, but the line is busy, so she decides to call her father. He doesn't answer, and the young woman thinks that she is always the last priority in her father's life. A tear runs down her face as she remembers her mother who is far away. Desperate, the girl wonders who she can ask for help since her mother can't do anything. Without many options, she holds her cell phone and prepares to call the person she least wanted to call. In her desperation, the girl calls her stepmother in the hope that she can help her. The woman answers the phone irritably and asks what the young woman wants as she is very busy at the moment. The stepdaughter explains that she is stuck on a staircase and asks for help because the emergency lines are not working. With a look of shock, she hears her stepmother tell her to fend for herself and solve her problem. The older woman says that their building is also in chaos and hangs up on the desperate young woman. The cell phone shows the call ended and the girl realizes that she has been abandoned once again by her stepmother. Alone and without hope, she remains silent, not knowing what to do to get out of that situation. Back in the present, the story ends and Minjin screams for Hyena, asking her to open the door. In her memory, her mother asked her to open it, but the young woman just wanted her to leave quickly. Tears streamed down her face as the girl felt completely abandoned and alone. Curled up in the corner, she thought about her biological mother and missed her so much at that moment. Back in the present, she ends the story by saying that her stepmother abandoned her and her father never looked for her. For this reason, the young woman says she doesn't want to meet either of them or know where they are. With a sad look, the girl reveals that at that moment she only misses her real mother. The boy then asks if her mother is still in the United States, and Hyena explains that she never contacted her. Minjin understands everything and remembers that this is why she wanted to study abroad, to find her. She says she said mean things to her mother and was hesitant to call even though she couldn't help. The girl then says sadly that now she has no one around to count on for help. The boy looks at her with a serious expression and seems very touched by the story he heard. He then asks her not to say that and states with certainty that she is not alone anymore. Surprised by his words, the young woman looks at him and listens attentively to what he has to say. The boy with glasses assures her that he and Hakshaw are there with her no matter what. With a gentle smile, he promises that they will survive together until the end no matter what happens. Touched by the boy's kind words, the young woman looks at him with a surprised and emotional expression. With her face a little flushed, she agrees with him and seems to feel a little more secure. The clock strikes almost midnight, and the boy suggests that they should finally get some sleep. Outside, the night is dark and some infected roam the streets looking for new victims. In the backyard, the clothes on the clothesline sway in the wind, and the morning is about to begin. Inside the room, everyone is sleeping soundly, enjoying the rare opportunity to rest in peace. Even while sleeping, the group leader hugs his weapon, showing that he is always ready for danger. Suddenly, in a dream, a voice screams and threatens to drag someone and end their life there. On the ground, a young Hakshaw is beaten and humiliated because of his traitorous uncle who fled to the south. The attacker smiles evilly and says that his destiny is to live in misery and challenges him to fight back. The older man wakes up scared and panting, looking very disturbed by the nightmare he just had. He suddenly gets up because he thinks he heard the sound of a car engine outside. The teacher also heard the noise, and the group leader says he will check what is happening. Through the window, we see the front gate of the house still closed while the darkness remains outside. Outside, Hakshaw hears car doors and worries about the danger the noise could attract. He looks to the side with a surprised expression and seems to have found something unexpected. A metal ladder is in the backyard, and he seems to have an idea to get a better look at what's going on. He quickly positions the ladder against the wall so he can climb up and get a view of the outside. Holding his gun carefully, the elder climbs the ladder to reach the roof of the house. Arriving at the top, he prepares to look at the street and see who arrived by car in the middle of the night. To his surprise, he sees something completely unexpected and is shocked by the scene below. The scene begins in front of a building on a quiet street in the middle of the night. Inside, an armed man hears the sound of a car door closing. He wonders who would have come here and if this would attract the zombies. The boy then decides to look and finds a ladder in the backyard of his shelter. That metal staircase leads directly to the roof of the building he is in. Without wasting time, he quickly climbs up to get a better view of the street. Arriving at the top, he positions himself to see what is happening down below. His face shows total surprise as he looks at what is on the street. From above, he sees two survivors standing in front of the gate of his shelter. The pair discuss whether they should go in as there may be people or infected people inside. Then one of them pulls out a pistol and says they need to get in quick before they are seen. At that moment, the man shouts from the roof, ordering them to stop and drop their weapons. The boys are scared, and the shooter threatens to shoot them if they don't obey within 3 seconds. In fear, the boy throws the pistol on the ground, and the man tells him to move away. He looks at the gun and wonders where they got a pistol. One of the boys shouts that they are not strange people, while the man on the roof wonders if they are thieves. He retorts that they tried to break in with a gun, and the young man insists that the house appeared empty. The boy with glasses explains that he took the pistol from a lifeless body he found, and it was not a soldier. In disbelief, the man questions how a civilian would have a weapon like that, but the boy says it's true. The young man points out that the shooter also has a rifle, so he explains that his weapon is from the army. They introduce themselves as a college student and a worker, and say they came from the Gunja Station shelter. The man on the roof hears the mention of Gunja Station and becomes interested at the time. He asks if it's the station on line 5 2 stops before Gwangnaru, which makes him look quite serious. The survivor confirms, shaking with fear, and says that there's a large shelter there. The man asks how they got there, and the boy explains that the surrounding stations are full of infected. After hearing the explanation, the boy on the roof becomes thoughtful and says he needs to know more about this story. He offers a deal in exchange for information and asks if they have seen a woman named Seo Kong. The two boys are surprised to hear that name, and one of them repeats it in a low voice. The man then invites them to come in and talk, but warns them that weapons are prohibited inside. Inside the house, a man wearing glasses and sweating coldly asks about the shelter at Gunja Station. The boy explains that the shelter is large with hundreds of survivors and a well-organized entrance. The older man then asks them to tell Seo Kong what they know about his daughter. He remembers that the last call with her was cut off at 8:10 that night. In a flashback, the girl said on the phone that people were attacking each other and it was chaos. Desperately, she said she was scared and running to the next carriage to protect herself. She then shouts that she is almost at Gwangnaru Station, but the call is suddenly cut off. Back in the present, the father says that the subway stopped there, but he doesn't know if his daughter got off. The other survivor then reveals that he was also on the subway going from Gwangnaru to Gunja. He explains that an outbreak started on the train that passed by and only stopped at Gunja Station. The boy concludes that if the story is true, it is very likely that his daughter is in the shelter. The father asks if they saw her, but the boy says it is difficult to recognize someone in a crowd. He looks at the photo on his cell phone and says he doesn't remember it because there were more than 200 passengers. Since many were infected on the train, they don't know if she survived or turned into a monster. The survivor asks the shooter if he will go with them and warns him that the entrance is well guarded. The man says there are too many to go together and suggests they rest and leave in the morning. He then hands a radio to the boy, who is surprised by the object. The man tells them to wait a kilometer away and get food for 2 days. The survivor asks if by doing all this the shooter will finally trust them. Our protagonist just stares at the boy with a serious and determined look. The scene then changes to the next day, showing some light on the street. Inside the house, he tells his group that they have agreed to go to Gunja station. The long-haired girl questions whether the boys might not be lying. He turns to the teacher and asks what he is going to do since they are leaving tomorrow. The boy thinks about the difficulties of traveling on foot along such a dangerous path. He suggests that if they can get a 6-seater vehicle, the trip becomes possible. The shooter warns that he will take care of himself, and the teacher will have to protect his family. He tells you to think very carefully about your final decision about the trip. The professor's wife and son look at him with worried faces. On the wall, we see pictures with medals showing a past of achievements. The girl says she will ask Mrs. Mo for a backpack to carry more food. While preparing the food, the pretty girl wonders where Jun is gone. Soon after, she goes up the stairs of the house to look for the boy with glasses. Upon reaching the second floor, she peeks through the door and hears a conversation about games. Inside, the two boys talk about a zombie game called Rage Z that one of them plays in secret. The youngest then reveals that his dream is to become a game developer like the creator of that game. The girl enters the room, surprising the pair, and asks when they became so close. The boy with glasses looks embarrassed as she continues to stare with a curious look. He then notices a poster of an idol group on the wall, and the youngest confirms that he is a fan. The girl asks the boy to come down and talk to his parents, and he happily agrees. The camera then focuses on the face of one of the idols on the poster, a girl with blonde hair. The girl notices that the boy is staring at the poster and asks if the idol is his type. The boy with glasses is left speechless and just stares at the girl after the unexpected question. He reveals that the idol on the poster is actually a person he knew when he was younger. The young woman is completely shocked and speechless upon hearing the boy's revelation. Laughing a lot, she points at the boy and tells him to stop lying, because this joke is not funny. The boy insists it's true and says he lost contact with her when they entered high school. He says that when he found out she became an idol, he just continued rooting for her from afar. The girl continues to doubt him, and he says that his friends also called him crazy when he told them. Laughing, she says it's ridiculous that he knows the idol, and the boy agrees that it was just a joke. After he leaves the room, the girl is left alone staring at the poster on the wall. She looks thoughtful and begins to wonder if his story could be true. The young woman looks at the poster again and admits that the blonde idol is indeed very beautiful. The scene then changes to a view from outside the house, showing that the decision has been made. In the classroom, the teacher approaches Hak Cheol, who is sitting on the sofa waiting. The man announces that he talked to his family and they decided to go to the shelter together. With the decision made, the teacher awaits the response from the boy who has the gun at his side. Hak Cheol says he already has a vehicle in mind for the trip they will take. The professor mentions his car and SUV, but says it is abandoned and difficult to recover. He reveals that there is an ambulance a kilometer away with an infected person in the driver's seat. The problem is that there were at least 5 infected people in total inside the vehicle. The shooter confirms that he saw with his own eyes 2 infected people inside the cabin. The professor says he saw the ambulance about 3 days ago, and it's probably still there. Hak Cheol believes that with help they can handle 3 zombies, but more than that would be dangerous. Everyone then agrees to finish preparations to leave together the next morning. The next day the sun rises, and the group prepares for the journey to the ambulance. The backpacks are all packed, and it looks like most of the gear is ready. The boy with glasses approaches Hak Cheol and asks what else they need to bring. He then suggests that it would be a good idea for them to prepare some Molotov cocktails. Surprised, Hak Cheol agrees as he believes they may need it later. The shooter thinks for a moment and agrees, saying that the idea is actually very good. Night falls over the city again, leaving the streets in total darkness. Inside the house, everyone rests while Hak Cheol keeps watch lying on the sofa. Suddenly, the radio calls and the other pair asks if he has already got a vehicle. He explains the ambulance plan and warns that unforeseen events may occur along the way. The duo says they will wait, and Hak Cheol hopes that no serious problems occur. In the darkness of the night, the city is covered in an ominous and silent fog. Through the dark streets, the ambulance is stopped while zombies roam nearby. The zombies' moaning is heard, and the boy on the radio wishes them good luck. Back at home, the night continues with the interior lights still on. Meanwhile, the long-haired girl sleeps peacefully in her bed. She appears to be in a deep sleep, completely oblivious to the danger outside. The scene then changes to an empty school hallway beginning a dream. Inside a classroom, the girl is sleeping alone at her desk. With her head resting on her arms, she lets out a small moan in her sleep. She finally wakes up and stretches, complaining about a horrible dream about zombies. Looking around, she realizes she is alone and wonders if everyone has gone home. When she looks at her watch, she panics because she's going to be late for the gym. In a hurry, the girl grabs her backpack and runs out of the classroom. In the hallway, she ends up bumping into someone and lets out a cry of surprise. To her surprise, the person is the boy with glasses, and she is shocked by the encounter. Surprised, the girl recognizes the boy with glasses as Jun. Without understanding, she asks why he is still at school and hasn't gone home. The girl finds the way he looks at her strange because normally he doesn't even look her in the eyes. Suddenly he grabs the girl's wrist tightly and she lets out a scream of pain. The boy then pushes her against a notice board, leaving her scared and with no way out. Completely in shock and sweating coldly, she only manages to say his name. Frightened, she demands to know what has gotten into him and orders him to release her immediately. He just whispers the damn word with a look full of anger and contempt. The boy then insults her and asks if she likes continuing to ignore him like that. He accuses her of treating him badly and ignoring him like he was a bug at school. Without understanding, the girl asks if he wants her to treat him rudely too. He threatens her, saying that he will attack her if he continues to be called an idiot. The boy says he doesn't want to look at a beggar and tells her to shut up once and for all. The girl defiantly tells him to hit her if he has the courage and calls him a coward. With her eyes closed in pain, she calls him damned and says that if he continues like this, the girl lets out a low moan as she remains trapped in her nightmare. With her eyes still tightly closed, she appears to be in a very restless sleep. Finally, she wakes up and realizes with relief that it was all just a dream. But when she really opens her eyes, she screams when she sees that she is hugging the boy. The scene shows the two lying together in the same bed, leaving the girl in panic. Confused and blushing, she wonders how she ended up sleeping with him in her arms. She wonders if he pushed her on purpose and pretends to be asleep now. In the same room, we see Chil sleeping peacefully on the sofa next to them. The girl gets angry at the boy with glasses, but soon a doubt arises in her mind. She finds the whole situation very strange and starts to think about something. In one memory, she remembers the bad smell he had at school. But now lying next to him, she no longer smells that unpleasant odor. The boy sleeps peacefully and she can feel his breathing very softly. She wonders if it's because he took a shower because he smells good now. With a confused look, she remains lying down trying to understand what happened. The girl wonders if she finds him handsome and if this is all just a dream. She's sure he wasn't that handsome and wonders it's because he doesn't have his glasses on. Suddenly, the boy opens his eyes, leaving the girl completely surprised and without reaction. The two stare at each other in silence for a moment, still lying in the same bed. With her face red and in a cold sweat, she is left speechless by the unexpected proximity. Then in a panic attack, the girl screams and punches the boy in the face. The noise wakes Chil, who grabs his gun, but Jun tells him to go back to sleep. The girl complains that he scared her by appearing out of nowhere and almost had a heart attack. He asks why she was awake and the girl lies, saying that his eyes were already open. Trembling with rage, the boy looks at the girl, who calls him a bastard, and is confused. She then accuses the young man of insulting her and even hitting her while she was sleeping. Very angry about this, the girl kicks the boy with glasses right in the face. The poor guy is on the floor holding his face without understanding anything about what happened. Completely confused, he wonders if he actually insulted Han Yi now without realizing it. He denies it to himself and begins to wonder if perhaps he said something in his sleep. The next morning arrives with a dense fog covering the entire city. Chil repeats the plan so that when they get the ambulance, they go straight back. He then asks Jun to go up to the roof and keep watch until they return. The group says goodbye, and the professor's wife asks her husband to be careful. With the plan drawn up, the two men leave through the front door of the house. Time passes slowly as the other two wait inside the shelter. On the streets, a thick fog takes over everything, making visibility very poor. On the roof, the boy with glasses uses binoculars to try to see something. Through the lenses, he can see a taxi stopped in the middle of the empty street. The girl asks if he can see them yet, but he replies that the fog is getting in the way. Worried, she says that an hour has passed and they haven't shown up yet. He reminds her that there were infected people in the ambulance and that it would take time to resolve. Suddenly, a loud gunshot echoes through the street, scaring the duo on the roof. The girl asks in fright if the shot was from Chil, but the boy says no. With a pale face, he explains that the sound is different from their friend's rifle. The girl asks who shot it and if it was the boys who came yesterday. Suddenly, the young woman's face fills with panic and she is in shock. She covers her mouth with her hand, feeling a very bad smell spreading through the air. With an expression of disgust, the girl complains about the smell that makes her feel sick. The boy with glasses also smells it and warns that something is approaching. A desperate voice shouts from below, ordering them to open the shelter door. Without hesitation, he quickly grabs the binoculars to see what is happening on the street. Through the lens, he sees one of the boys from the previous day running alone in the fog. The man runs with a gun in his hand, shouting for them to open the gate quickly. Down below, the group gathers and the original residents face the survivor. The newcomer looks at the group and one of them asks if he is the one who came yesterday. Back on the roof, the girl asks where the car and the other person are. Desperately, the survivor runs towards the house's gate to be able to enter. With the pistol in his hand, he shouts once more for them to open the gate to the shelter. The boy asks about the other one, and he says that his companion was attacked and that was it. The survivor is sweating and has a dirty face as he says that an infected has appeared. Desperately, he shouts that a monster has appeared and that shooting it will do no good. On the roof, the boy with glasses quickly raises his binoculars to see the scene. He is completely shocked by what he sees and can hardly believe what is in front of him. Huge, swollen feet walk down the street as the survivor calls out for Hanyena. In a memory, a large, smiling man introduces himself as Bong Jiu. We then see a disturbing image of him covered in blood asking about Instagram. Min Jun remembers playing a video game where a fat zombie appeared. That doubt that haunted you about the game suddenly starts to make sense. If the similarity between the game and reality were true, the world would be lost. The same hideous creature from the game is now right in front of you in real life. The giant, deformed monster walks down the street, and the boy finally understands everything. In his room, our hero is just chilling, playing a game, when a warning pops up on the screen about some jumbo-sized zombie and telling him to get out of there. For some reason, that creature on the screen gives him this weird, sinking feeling of anxiety and dread. So he starts thinking, if this game is even the tiniest connection to real life, well, that means the world is pretty much toast. Suddenly, that anxiety becomes all too real when we see a real-life version of the creature, all covered in nasty-looking injuries. Seeing the monster in its full, grotesque glory, he's positive the apocalypse has officially kicked off in his world. A barbed wire fence is shown as the chapter title declares that the apocalypse has finally arrived. A few moments earlier, we see the city streets are completely empty, with a strange fog blanketing the entire urban landscape. Just before that, we see a parked ambulance with 2 infected figures trapped inside. Next to the vehicle, 2 guys are planning their escape. One of them, armed with a bat, sizes up the situation. A loud noise grabs the guy's attention, and he looks up, confused by the sudden sound. His partner asks what that noise was and if he's managed to get the vehicle so they can bail. The young man explains the sound came from the people from yesterday, and the professor is shocked by the news. Someone warns them not to open the driver's side door and to shoot, because the infected would be all over them. Meanwhile, the other man makes a desperate run for a door, trying to escape the danger. Desperate, he bangs on a green door, begging them to open up or else he's a goner. The door swings open, and a young man with glasses tells him to get inside the safe house, quick. Just as he's about to say thanks, the monsters catch up and grab him from behind, much to his horror. The kid with the glasses just freezes, completely paralyzed with fear by the scene unfolding right in front of him. The man screams in pain as he's dragged to the ground and attacked by the creature that grabbed him. He begs for help, but the guy with the glasses and the girl just stare, terrified by the gruesome scene. The young woman is in total shock, completely confused and unable to process what's happening around her. Out of the fog, a whole horde of infected emerges, and among them is the big, beefy monster from the game. The enormous creature looks right at them and says in a chilling voice that it's finally found them. Terrified, the girl falls to the ground, and the guy with the glasses stands frozen in front of her, completely panicking. Seeing the horde getting closer, the kid with the glasses makes a split-second decision and slams the door shut. From the inside, he holds the door with all his might, listening to the man's screams from outside. The girl in shock asks the young man what that monstrous thing was. The young woman recognizes him as Lee Bong Jiu, the guy they met at the construction site who knew Park Sung-bin. Outside, the giant monster lets out a terrifying groan, calling out the name, Wai Na. The guy with the glasses starts breaking out in a cold sweat and says they need to get out of there fast. He says not even a rifle can stop that thing, and that they need help from some guy named Kang Hak Cheel. His eyes go wide as he suddenly seems to get an idea to handle the situation. With this new idea in mind, the guy with the glasses whips around, facing the inside of the house. He then sprints toward the back of the house, getting away from the door as fast as he can. An older woman asks about the noise, and he tells her to grab Ha Jun and hide on the second floor. Then he remembers fire and gets the idea to use Molotov cocktails against the creatures outside. He turns to the girl and tells her she needs to listen carefully because he's going to need her help. The young woman named Ham Yi-nai is still paralyzed with fear, tears streaming down her terrified face. The guy with the glasses yells at her to snap out of it and listen to the plan he's cooked up for them to survive. He explains that the creature is going to break through the gate and the door, so he'll throw Molotovs to buy them some time. When the monster gets in, she has to throw gasoline on it and then follow up with more Molotovs to stop it. The young woman seems to hesitate for a second, but quickly agrees to help with his risky plan. With her confirmation, he turns and yells for everyone to run to the second floor immediately. Someone then grabs one of the bottles they've turned into Molotov cocktails for the plan. Outside, the young man gets ready with the bombs, thinking that the noise is going to attract even more walkers. He figures that even with their attack instincts maxed out, the infected are still vulnerable to fire. With a swift motion, he hurls the firebomb, knowing the creatures will mindlessly jump into the flames. A huge explosion goes off, and with it, he hopes to stop the monsters from swarming and uncontrollably. Even with the intense fire, an infected's hand manages to reach through the now destroyed gate. In a close-up, we see a zombie's foot on fire, and more importantly, the plan seems to be working. The jumbo-sized monster pushes through the flames and screams the girl's name as the young man says they need to finish it. Even with its body burning, the creature doesn't stop advancing and seems to ask if it has finally been found. From above, Na throws a bucket of some liquid to help fight the threat down below. The liquid hits the monster in the face, which screams one of the guy's names in agony and fury. Seizing the opportunity, the young man hurls another Molotov cocktail at the creature, screaming for it to just drop dead already. The The bottle hits its mark and causes a gigantic explosion that completely engulfs the zombie. The monster is completely consumed by the flames, screaming in pain as its body is incinerated. The young man yells that it's not enough and tells the girls to keep throwing the bombs. However, one of the infected manages to get through the fire barrier and breaks into their safe zone. The guy with the glasses starts to worry because he's running out of Molotov cocktails, and without them, things will get dangerous. On the second floor, Yahello and the other young woman have also used up almost all their firebombs. Minjun then holds the last bottle he has left to use for defense. Suddenly, one of the infected that got through the fire lunges and attacks him by surprise. The monster grabs him by the neck with its filthy hands and throws him backward with incredible force. Seeing the horrible scene from above, Hanyina desperately screams the young man's name. The other woman asks what to do, and Yi now realizes she can't throw the bomb without hitting him. In the courtyard, more zombies keep pushing forward while Jun is being attacked on the ground. Pinned down and being attacked, the young man looks up and screams with what's left of his strength. He thinks that if any more creatures show up, it's over for all of them. Realizing his time is up, the kid accepts his fate as the monsters attack him without mercy. The guy with the glasses' body starts to catch fire as the infected continue their assault. With his eyes closed, he seems to have given up and accepted that his life has come to an end. Suddenly, a voice yells at him to get up and not give up on his life. It was that Kang Hak Chil guy yelling for him to get up before more monsters show up. With his last bit of strength, the guy with the glasses calls out the name of his savior who just appeared. Hak Chil then extends his hand and helps him up from the ground where he had fallen. Meanwhile, the giant monster, still on fire, hasn't been defeated and continues to threaten them. Flashing back a bit, we see Hak Chil yelling for everyone to get into a shelter, fast. Through the streets, a massive crowd of infected runs frantically, causing total panic in the city. In front of an ambulance, our hero aims his weapon at a creature sprinting toward him. He fires a perfect shot, hitting the monster right between the eyes, stopping it in its tracks. After the shot, the young man remembers that was his last bullet, and now they really have to run for it. We get a close-up of the ambulance's license plate, smeared with blood, as everyone gets ready to flee. Inside the vehicle, he yells at the driver to step on it, and the man agrees to get them out of there as fast as possible. The vehicle floors it, leaving behind a horde of furious creatures chasing after them. They finally manage to escape at high speed, leaving the monsters in the dust. The ambulance driver, sweating bullets, looks incredibly tense as he navigates the streets. In the rearview mirror, he sees the house engulfed in flames and the horrific scene they left behind. The flames completely consume the building that was once everyone's safe haven. With a serious look, the man focuses on the road, trying not to think about what just happened. The city streets are pure chaos, with infected running every which way. A very dense fog blankets the entire urban landscape, making everything even more terrifying. The image confirms that the apocalypse has finally arrived to change the world forever. Now, their vehicle moves slowly through the abandoned cars on the deserted street. Inside the ambulance, the survivors are silent, their faces showing the trauma they've endured. The guy with the glasses seems lost in thought, sweating as he remembers a tragic event. In his mind, he flashes back to the moment a man was banging on the door, desperately begging to be let in. With a shocked face, the young man opens the door and yells for the man to get in quickly before it's too late. Just as he was about to say thanks, a creature grabs him from behind, preventing him from getting inside the shelter. Back in the present, his eyes widen with a horrible memory of that tragic moment. Suddenly, the guy with the glasses feels a sharp pain and puts a hand on his stomach, complaining about the injury. Ye Na asks if he's okay, and he explains that the wound started hurting again. He'll just wait it out until tomorrow. Through the narrow, fog-filled streets, the ambulance inches along through the desolate scenery. In the front seat, the driver says they're close to the rendezvous point they'd arranged with someone. The leader thinks they've gone far enough, but the other guy prefers to wait since the weather is turning and it might rain. Suddenly, the driver is startled and points ahead, yelling that he can already see the place. They then arrive at their destination, the Sky Motel building on a completely deserted street. Getting closer, they notice another ambulance parked at the entrance of the abandoned motel. Inside, a dark blood-splattered hallway leaves Yi terrified and on edge. Hak Chil says the floor is secure with 3 rooms and that he's more afraid of people than he is of monsters. He warns them to be careful with doors marked with an X and that there are more infected on the 4th floor. The professor asks how they should split the 3 rooms, while Yi Na complains that the flashlight is making everything look even creepier. The camera then focuses on the dark door of room number 203, one of the safe spots. Inside the room, the leader asks if Yi Na would be okay on her own, but she says she'd rather stick with them. He suggests the young woman bunk with the older lady while the men split the other 2 rooms. Alone in the bathroom, the guy with the glasses seems to be in severe pain and clutches his stomach. With a pained expression, he complains that the wound is getting more and more painful. He then lifts his shirt, revealing the large bandage covering the injury on his abdomen. As he lifts his shirt, he's shocked by what he sees on his wound and starts to sweat nervously. With his eyes wide with terror, he wonders what the heck is happening to his body now. Looking at the injury, he sees that the stitches look strange, and he can't figure out why. In front of the mirror, he gets a better look and realizes the wound seems to be completely infected. Terrified by the possibility, he questions if he might have been infected by the monsters outside. Desperate, the young man tries to remember when and where it could have happened during the zombie attack. He then checks his arms and the rest of his body, but doesn't find any bite marks from the monsters. A memory surfaces of the moment he was injured in a fight at the construction site. He recalls that during that fight, he ended up falling and passed out for a while after being hit. He thinks that if he was infected during the fight, the incubation period wouldn't be this long and he'd already be a zombie. So, he tries to remember when he was attacked, but the clothes he was wearing on the day of the injury were completely different. The guy wonders if the infection could have been from bodily fluids, like blood in his eyes or mouth. He remembers Chiel saying that the only way to get infected was by a bite, and that blood wasn't contagious. Maybe his friend's theory was wrong, or maybe it was just a normal inflammation in his recent wound. Suddenly, his eyes widen in pure terror with the horrifying conclusion he's finally reached. Sitting on the bathroom floor, he's certain his gut feeling isn't wrong and that this is an infection. Meanwhile, back in the room, a small oil lamp dimly illuminates the dark space. The young woman named Yi Nai has a very worried expression on her apprehensive face. Worried, she thinks that he's been in there for a long time and calls out his name, saying she needs to use the bathroom. She threatens to come in if he doesn't come out, and at that exact moment, the bathroom door slowly creaks open. Surprised, the young woman asks him what he was doing in there, since she didn't hear a single sound or response from him. The young man then asks if he can sleep alone in the remaining room, leaving the girl confused by his request. The guy with the glasses just says he wants to be alone, leaving the young woman even more baffled by it all. The young woman presses for a reason, but he just says he feels sick, and that's why he wants to be alone right now. Awkwardly, the young woman asks if the idea is for her to share a room with Kiel, finding that a bit weird. Without answering, the guy just grabs his backpack and starts to leave as she asks him to wait. The girl asks if he's uncomfortable because of her, but he just stares at her and says her name. With a serious look, the young man says he wants to stop playing games with her and asks her to please just leave him alone. Not understanding at all, the young woman is left completely confused by the guy's sudden and strange reaction. The young man then turns and leaves the room, leaving the young woman standing alone in the doorway, completely clueless. In another room, Chiel is leaning against the door with his arms crossed and a serious expression. He says he'll share a room with the others, and that it would be better for her to stay with the older woman. We then see the door to room 202, where the guy with the glasses decides to isolate himself from the rest of the group. As he turns the doorknob, he thinks that everyone probably expects some kind of action movie life. Entering the room with his backpack, he reflects that life isn't like being the main character of a movie. He looks at the window and thinks that people believe in a happy ending, no matter how tough things get. Standing in the middle of the messy room, he feels a sharp pain in his stomach and feels completely hopeless. The young man then sits on the floor, leaning against the door, and seems to accept his tragic and lonely fate. He holds his wound and realizes that in real life, there's no such thing as a happy ending for everyone. The young man understands he was far from being a main character. His life was just ordinary and unremarkable. In the end, he decides to just get infected and disappear, since he was just another background character in the story anyway. He wonders what he was even expecting out of life, reflecting on his own pointless existence. Sitting on the floor of the messy room, he cries because he knows his end was going to be like this one way or another. Outside, the city remains shrouded in fog, and the groans of zombies echo through the empty streets. The next morning, a cloudy sky illuminates the Sky Motel sign where the survivors spent the night. Ye Nai then knocks on the door of room 202, calling for Min Jun to see if he's awake yet. Chiel appears behind her and, with a serious expression, says he's going to open the door to check. He then turns the doorknob but notices something strange and gets confused by the situation. Surprised, the man says that the door is locked from the inside, and the young woman is shocked by the unexpected news. With a bead of sweat running down his face, he thinks that he hopes he's wrong, but he has a very bad feeling about this. Kiel then tells the young woman that he thinks the guy got infected by the monsters. Shocked, the young woman can't believe what she just heard and is left speechless. The young woman says that's nonsense because he'd be making noise if he were a monster. The man shoots back that if the young man were okay, he would have already opened the door. He then raises the possibility that the kid might have just stopped breathing. Angry, the girl calls him crazy and tells him not to even joke about that. Desperate, she pounds on the door, yelling for Min Jun to stop messing around. The young woman keeps banging on the door and says that this isn't funny at all. With no response from the other side, she falls silent in front of the door. The young woman calls the guy's name, still standing in front of the door to room 202. Desperate, she starts hammering on the door and yells for him to open up right now. With her face covered in tears, she curses him out and demands he stop this stupid prank. Suddenly, the sound of the doorknob turning echoes down the hall, and the door begins to open. Seeing the door move, the girl is completely stunned by the unexpected scene. Worried, she asks if he's okay, but the young man just calls her name in a weak voice. The young man then reveals that there's something very wrong happening with his body. The young woman keeps pounding on the door, desperately screaming for the guy to stop his silly game. With her face covered in tears, she curses him out and demands he stop the stupid, tasteless prank. Suddenly, the sound of the doorknob turning echoes down the hall, and the door finally begins to creak open. Seeing the door move, the girl is completely stunned by the totally unexpected scene. Worried, she asks if he's okay, but the young man just calls her name in a very weak voice. The guy then reveals that something very strange is happening to his body, leaving them both extremely concerned. The scene then shifts to 18 years in the past, showing us a quiet street in a suburban American neighborhood. We see two young boys near a tall fence, one of them rushing his friend to get to that strange place already. One of the boys warns the other not to get close to the weirdo who lives there, because his aunt forbade it. The other kid replies that it's just curiosity, he only wants to know why the man thinks the world is going to end. His friend warns him that the man might shoot them with a gun, but he doubts something like that would ever happen in their neighborhood. Even though he's a little scared, the young man doesn't seem to know what to do, as his curiosity about the man is much stronger. His fearful friend then gives up on the idea and decides to go home, not wanting to get an earful from his aunt later. Alone, the curious boy stands there, staring at the large metal gate, still wondering what's on the other side. Suddenly, a mysterious voice from inside the property asks loudly who's out there, startling the young man. The mysterious voice warns that soon there will be zombies everywhere and questions him about putting his life at risk. The boy wonders about zombies and what that even means, still not understanding any of this crazy situation. The voice comments that it heard him speaking Korean and asks where he's from, surprising the boy. The man asks if he's the son of the Asian couple who lives nearby, but the boy denies it and explains his situation. The voice then asks where his parents are, and the young man gets a sad look on his face, not answering. With an empty gaze, he reveals that his parents passed away while they were still living in South Korea. Because of that, he and his twin brother were sent to live with their uncle, and the voice apologizes for the question. The man warns that it's dangerous outside and that the zombies will come, but the boy just thinks he's a nutjob. The voice asks if he's looking for a hideout, and the young man wonders if this is some kind of role-playing game. Playing along, the boy says the zombies are chasing him, and that's why he's running from the danger. The man asks if the zombies have finally appeared and if he's been bitten, but the young man says no. Suddenly, the large metal gate opens a crack, revealing a small gap to the inside. The boy stands frozen in front of the now open gate, completely surprised by the unexpected scene. An older man with a shotgun appears in the doorway and yells for him to get inside quickly. With a bead of sweat running down his face, the boy is speechless in the face of this utterly bizarre scene. We then see the large metal gate closing and the house fortified with bars and strange warnings. Inside the yard, there are scaffolds, boxes, and metal plates, showing the man's preparation for something big. Even the house windows are all covered with wooden planks so that no one can get in. Inside the house, we see a messy room with leftover food and bottles scattered across the coffee table. The boy asks what zombies are, and the man laughs, saying that he knows absolutely nothing. The man then asks where sinners go when they die, and answers his own question to hell. He explains that if hell gets full, God will pass a cruel and merciless sentence on all of humanity. When there's no more room in hell, the dead who can't go there will wander the earth. The boy's eyes go wide, completely shocked to hear the man's bizarre story. The man warns that divine punishment is near, and that if he doesn't prepare, it will be hard to survive. With a serious look, the man says he's going to show the boy something incredible, leaving him clueless. He takes him to a basement and shows him shelves full of supplies and food for the apocalypse. In another part of the basement, we see an entire wall filled with firearms and ammunition of various calibers. The man guides the boy through the basement, showing off his entire survival arsenal for the end of the world. Shocked, the boy asks what all of this is, a bead of sweat running down his frightened face. The man says with a serious look that the end of the world will come one day, and he needs to be prepared. Without a doubt, he shows an armored vehicle in the garage as proof of his preparation for the apocalypse. The scene returns to the present, and we see a monster stumbling through the streets in front of the Sky Motel. Next, we see the door to room 202, where the group of survivors is now gathered. 18 years later in Seoul, the guy points a gun at Min Jun, who is lying injured on the bed. The girl asks why he's pointing the gun, and the young man replies that you never know what might go down. He explains that the kid could turn at any moment and attack them all by surprise in the room. The professor says that a fever of 107 degrees isn't normal and doesn't seem to be just from the wound. Lying on the bed, the young man insists he wasn't bitten and doesn't understand the reason for the symptoms at his cut. The young woman says the incubation time is short, and the man explains that it doesn't last more than a full day. The guy is sure he was infected by the dirty knife or through the exposed wound. In that case, the infection would have happened before she treated the wound, leaving the young woman deeply shocked. Terrified, she asks if this means Min Jun has been infected for several days without knowing it. The young man confirms it and says that if he doesn't turn by tomorrow, then something different might happen. He then raises the possibility that Min Jun might be immune to the infection, leaving the boy very surprised. The guy admits he's no expert, so he can't be certain about the boy's immunity. Lying on the bed, the young man with glasses is completely shocked by the unexpected news he just heard. With wide eyes, he wonders if he really could be immune to this strange and deadly disease. Time passes slowly and night finally begins to fall over the Sky Motel building. Darkness takes over the city and a tense, terrifying silence hangs in the air. Suddenly, one of the lights on the motel sign flickers and goes out, making the environment even gloomier. In the room, the sick young man finally manages to get some rest after all that tension and fear. Sitting in a chair, the young woman stays up all night watching over him and monitoring his condition. Suddenly, she notices he's awake and asks in surprise if he's already up. She says his fever has gone down and his face looks better, then asks how he feels physically now. He asks how long he slept, and the young woman replies that it's been since yesterday for several dozen hours. Confused, the young man asks what she's doing there, and the girl says she's just checking on him. Worried, he asks if she isn't scared to be near him, since he could turn into one of the infected. The young woman stares at him with a serious and steady gaze, showing no fear of the situation. She says he's not scary and reminds him that the other guy said he might be immune to the infection. He asks if she's changed a lot, and the young woman replies that even without him, she would have survived somehow. With a flushed face, she says that taking care of him was just to check on how he was feeling at the moment. The boy then simply thanks her for all the help she's given him during this whole time. The guy says she's different and that he never thought he'd depend on her, thanking her once again. The young woman gets flustered and says that she's actually the one who should be thanking him for all his help. Looking at the mess, he says he's much better, because yesterday he almost checked out, and you have to do whatever it takes to live. The camera then focuses on the Sky Motel sign, where the group of survivors is currently taking refuge. In the room, the other guy asks if that monster was similar to the zombies from his game. The young man on the bed answers with certainty that this situation is, without a doubt, connected to that game. The other one questions if the game company created the virus, but the young man says he doesn't know the answer. She asks about the famous developer, and the young man tries to remember his name, a bit confused. A voice reveals it's Daniel Jin, the CEO of Redmind, and we see a young man at the door in a memory from the past. In a flashback, the 12-year-old boy says he really admires that famous game developer. In the present, she remembers his dream was to be a dev and asks if he's heard of Daniel Jin. The boy explains that he's a Korean-American developer who became a hit with an indie game in high school. He mentions that the game Rage 2 was a success, and afterward, the company invested in medicine and biology. The guy explains that he's a famous entrepreneur in America, but not well known in Korea. The protagonist remembers that Daniel Jin has a twin brother but can't recall his name right now. The guy laments not having internet to look it up, because the coincidence between their businesses is just too bizarre. The young woman then asks what the company's goal would be in all this, but he doesn't know the answer to that either. The protagonist gets tense, a bead of sweat on his face, as he can't figure out the motive. The scene suddenly shifts to a dark and gloomy hallway in a mysterious, unknown building. We see an archive photo of Daniel Jin at 29 years old in some kind of official report. A person explains that Daniel and his twin brother, Elliot, suffered a lot of bullying during their childhood. Their mother was a famous actress who was unjustly accused of fraud and ended up taking her own life. The father also went bankrupt and took his own life, so the twins went to the United States to live with an uncle. The agent asks the woman to get to the point, and she explains that after that, he founded Redmind. The young man says he doesn't have time for this conversation because he needs to get back to Korea right now. The agent comments that if he suffered so much at the hands of his compatriots, he would have a motive for revenge. The person then asks directly if he was the one who spread the virus all over South Korea. We see the sterile, empty hallway of the building again, creating an atmosphere of intense tension and suspense. Annoyed, the young man asks how many times he has to repeat that he wasn't responsible for that incident. He then suggests they suspect his younger brother, who seems to be the real culprit in this story. The agent asks if he knows why Elliot returned to Korea, but the young man says he doesn't know the real reason. Daniel thinks it's obvious that he was the one who bought Elliot's lab and finds it absurd that they know nothing. The agent reveals that his company's stock shot up 500%, which is why he's the prime suspect. Looking to the side, the young man just comments that his brother was always that weird, slightly crazy way. With a hateful look, he says that all Koreans should go to hell for everything they did to them. The agent scoffs and Daniel gets angry, saying he created his company to help, not to destroy the world. He states that while they argue, a lot of people are dying, and that they are the only ones who can create the vaccine. The agent asks about luring the infected, and the young man confirms they're on their way, threatening him seriously. The virus has already spread to other countries, and he needs to go to Korea to clean up his brother's mess. The agent informs him that there's still no news on Elliot's whereabouts, as the local agents haven't responded. Another agent comments that although Elliot is the main suspect, there is no concrete evidence against him. The agent then decides that they will go after Elliot themselves, and that they won't release Daniel until they find him. The agent agrees with the plan and decides to move forward with that pretty crazy idea. Daniel then proposes that the agents accompany him to Korea and guarantees he won't try to escape. With a determined look, he thinks that his brother won't be able to escape him. No way. The agent stares at Daniel as he claims to be the person who knows his own twin brother best. With the air of a hero, he asserts that in the end, he alone will be able to save all of humanity. The scene then shifts to an empty, fog-filled street with abandoned cars everywhere. We go back 2 days in the past, to the moment the guy left to look for an ambulance in the city. He rides his scooter down the street and notices the fog and the low battery remaining on his vehicle. The guy thinks about heading to Gunjar and Akasan stations, as the group might have changed their route. Suddenly, a man covered in injuries appears in front of him, screaming loudly in pain and desperation. The guy slams on the scooter's brakes, and the blood-stained tire stops right in front of the strange man. The man then lunges at him, and the guy is terrified by the aggressive and unexpected move. Without a second thought, the guy quickly grabs a knife that was stored inside his backpack. In a swift motion, he attacks the man with the knife to defend himself from the imminent threat. He continues the attack with the knife to ensure that man won't be getting up from the ground again. He thinks that attacking with a knife is more exciting than a punch, but it gets boring since the monsters don't say anything. Suddenly, the sound of gunshots echoes through the empty street, and he spins around, surprised by the unexpected noise. Confused, the guy wonders what that strange sound was and soon realizes it sounded like a real gunshot. He questions if it really was a firearm and considers that maybe it could be a soldier nearby. While cleaning his knife, he wonders why the military can't control the infected and gets worried. Despite a certain amount of fear, the guy decides to head in the direction of the shots to find out what's happening. On the way, he stops near a car with its hood open, probably to grab a battery for his scooter. Back on the vehicle, he hears more shots and realizes the sound is getting closer and closer. The guy is shocked by the number of shots and calculates that more than 10 rounds were fired in a row. Getting closer, he shouts to try and get the attention of whoever is shooting in that direction. He sees a survivor on a rooftop and warns him not to go that way because the monsters are gathering there. The man, who looks like a soldier, is badly injured and desperately screams for help from the rooftop. The guy stands there looking at the soldier with a surprised expression, unsure of what to do. The scene cuts to the motel room where we see a trail of blood on the floor coming from a slightly ajar door. The guy asks if that's true, and the young man with glasses confirms it is, making him very tense with the news. The soldier explains that there are super survivors 300 meters from there and that they had arranged to meet at the motel. He says that a monster appeared and caused a huge problem, but he barely managed to survive. His partner must think he's a goner and probably ran to the super survivor's house to get help. The guy says he'll help and asks if the other survivors are military because of the shots he heard. The soldier denies it and reveals that he heard one of them was a North Korean defector who looked like a student. The guy's eyes go wide with surprise upon hearing that completely unexpected piece of information from the soldier. Shocked, he asks if the soldier really said that one of the survivors was a defector from North Korea. The guy then asks if the group included a boy with glasses and a tall girl with long hair. The soldier doesn't remember the girls but confirms the presence of the defector and the young man with glasses in the group. The guy asks if the defector's name was Kang Hak Keel, but the soldier isn't sure of his name. He explains that his partner communicated by radio, and the name sounded something like Wak Cheel. The guy listens intently as the soldier tries to remember the name he heard over his friend's radio. The young man then asks if the group consisted of Kang Hak Cheel, Jung Min Jun, and Han Yi Na. Surprised, he realizes the soldier is talking about his friends and says he was looking for them. The soldier is completely confused by the guy's reaction and asks if he's being serious about this. The soldier says there's a problem at the house and that he heard an engine, but doesn't know if they escaped. With an injured leg, he asks for help to get a vehicle and let the others know he survived. The guy puts the information together, connecting the dots between the house, the ambulance, and the Sky Motel. He thanks the soldier and says that everything worked out for him in that unexpected and strange moment. The guy then starts rummaging through the soldier's backpack, who asks confusedly what he's doing. He says the soldier is going to kick the bucket anyway and asks if he can have his backpack. The soldier doesn't understand, and the guy says he's not going to help a dude with broken legs and calls him a loudmouth. He tells the soldier to just die already if he's in pain and calls him a sucker, leaving the man completely shocked. Furious, the soldier calls him a scumbag and reminds him that he said he would help and now has abandoned him. With a malicious smile, the guy asks if the soldier is afraid of dying alone in that place. He then offers to help the soldier die comfortably, a smile on his face. A scream of pain echoes through the area as a window with an intricate pattern appears in the scene. Outside, we see a house with a crashed car in the driveway and an atmosphere of abandonment and despair. The guy's scooter battery finally dies, and he gets annoyed with the unexpected situation. He realizes he's made a huge mistake and is now carrying the dead soldier's backpack. He tries to remember the name of the neighborhood where the Sky Motel is, but his memory fails him at that moment. 2 days later, in the present, the scene focuses again on the Sky Motel sign where the group has taken refuge. They discuss whether immunity is a glitch in the game and the possibility that Daniel recreated the game. The young woman says he could be humanity's hope, but first, he needs to confirm if he's really immune. The guy says what worries him most is the weapon he saw with the mysterious person last time. He reveals they were Desert Eagle pistols, weapons that aren't commonly used in that country. The other guy suggests they might be from a shooting range with live ammo, but the hypothesis is unlikely. On the bed, the young man with glasses still seems a bit shaken by everything that has happened so far. The young woman suggests they leave now that the weather has improved, and the guy goes to tell the parents to get ready. The boy with glasses gets up to check the route, and the young woman offers to go with him. The young woman is surprised by the boy's unexpected invitation and doesn't know what to say to him. The other guy tries to stop the boy with glasses from going alone, and the young woman seems worried about the situation. She asks where he's going and if he's not afraid of passing out, but he assures her he's recovered. The young woman asks if he's going to leave her there alone and offers again to go with him on the mission. The other guy watches the scene and comments that the young woman is completely attached to the boy with glasses. The girl denies it, her face red, and yells that she's just worried because her friend nearly passed out yesterday. Furious, she yells that he doesn't know anything and grabs him, telling to just go if he wants to leave. The guy pulls away and tells her to go to hell, while the young woman sits on the bed, not understanding a thing. The young man with glasses calls for him to go, and he agrees to leave the room, leaving the shocked young woman behind. Looking over her shoulder, she wonders in disbelief if that jerk really just walked out. The scene then shows us the outside of the Sky Motel, where the group of survivors is hiding. We then see a pair of blood-stained white sneakers walking down the empty street of the abandoned city. The guy in the military jacket finally arrives at the Sky Motel and sees the ambulance parked out front. With his back to us, he celebrates finally finding the place after searching all over that part of the city. With a sinister smile on his face, he repeats the name Sky Motel quietly to himself with a strange look in his eyes. But taking advantage of a soldier's carelessness, he grabbed the gun and fired, escaping with his brothers. He reveals he was only 12 years old at the time, leaving Haben completely impressed. Our hero then wonders if every North Korean is that strong, but the guy immediately denies it. In fact, most are weaker, and he only got strong after fighting for his life for 2 years. Even so, Haben asks if he doesn't want to go back home, but the other guy refuses the idea. After walking for a bit, they finally arrive at the door of apartment 203. Inside, Yena has a very sad and worried expression for some reason. Her mother notices she's down and asks why, but the young woman says it's nothing. Yena then lies, saying that a friend is just bothering her a little. Changing scenes, a strange guy arrives at a motel and wonders if it's the right place. Dressed in military clothes, he says he searched all the motels and finally found what he was looking for. With a very sinister smile on his face, he confirms to himself that he's at the Sky Motel. The suspicious-looking former friend stands in front of the establishment, staring at the place. With a smile and dirty clothes, he says he's very excited to see Yena again. But his smile suddenly vanishes when he notices something and gets serious all of a sudden. He remembers that a guy named Kang Hak-chil once said he had a weapon. Knowing this, he gets worried because he'd be at a disadvantage and needs to think of a plan. However, upon looking at the motel entrance, the individual has a big surprise. We see the two guys leaving and the North Korean offers a rifle to Haben. Hidden, the military man watches the pair talking about the defector's escape story. He explains that he risked his life because it's almost impossible to leave the country without a guide. Then the guy recognizes them both and realizes the weapon is real and they're keeping watch. Looking at the building, the military man starts connecting the dots about what might be happening. With a smile, he understands that Yena is completely defenseless inside that motel. He then boasts, thinking that no one there is more dangerous than him. The scene then changes to a random city street, showing cars passing by. Suddenly, we hear a scream coming from a garage that is now all stained. Returning to the pair, Haben asks if the other guy already knew how to shoot when he was a kid. The guy confirms and reveals he had to take someone down before escaping, leaving our hero shocked. He says that his uncle escaped first, and because of that, his family was branded as traitors. The girl's mother says that even though Jung Min-jun is weak, he risks his life for them. Yena dodges the question, saying she's not worried and that he just annoys her a little. The woman then asks a serious question about what her daughter would do if he didn't make it. Then she asks directly if Yena likes that boy, leaving the young woman in shock. Blushing completely, Yena denies it right away, but her mother just laughs at her reaction. Alone, the girl starts to wonder if she really has feelings for Jung Min-jun. She then wonders if she's just obsessed and if that's what other people see. With a tear in her eye, the young woman tries to convince herself that it isn't real love. She concludes that she only feels this way because he's the only person she can trust right now. We see Min-jun's thoughts, wondering how Yena changed so much to take care of him. In her room, the young woman quietly admits to herself that she has really changed. She thinks that the world has ended, and now that everyone is equal, she isn't the same either. Yena remembers that before all this, she could have whatever she wanted and was very popular. In high school, all the guys fell for her except for one specific boy. Suddenly it clicks, and she wonders if that's why Min-jun doesn't like her. She gets annoyed because everyone falls for her except Min-jun, who doesn't react. Without realizing it, she speaks loudly and her mother scolds her for suddenly being so sassy. At that moment, very loud knocks on the door startle the two of them, putting them on alert. Outside, we see a dark and empty hallway, which increases the scene's tension. The mother then asks who it is and if it might be Jun coming back. Still suspicious, the older woman tries to guess if it's one of the guys who has returned. However, Yena realizes something is wrong because they wouldn't be back so soon. Suddenly, the door starts being forced open with great violence, making the two of them scared. With her eyes wide with terror, the young woman yells, asking who is on the other side. Quickly, the mother goes to the door to look through the peephole and see who is there. But to her surprise, the hallway is still completely empty with no one there. Hiding to the side, the military man smiles, saying he's more nervous than the first time. He then confirms that he heard Yena's voice and another woman's inside the room. The individual decides to mark room 202 and then check the other rooms. He sees a door marked with an X and deduces he can't enter because there are infected inside. Suddenly, he notices something and his expression changes completely. He then stops in front of the door of room 206 and stares at it for a while. As he tries to open it, a man asks his son, Jun, to wait a moment. The man then says that daddy is going to see mommy, leaving the military man confused. The door opens and a guy with glasses asks, frightened, who the individual is. With a threatening look, he replies that he's there for Yena. He is terrified and the military man asks if there's anyone else in the room. Losing patience, the individual moves forward with the blade, threatening the man with glasses. At that moment, a young boy appears at the door of one of the rooms, very scared. We see the look of terror on the boy's face, who is completely shocked by the scene. The aggressor grabs the boy's father, who screams in desperation upon seeing the situation. The boy then runs and yells for the aggressor not to touch his father. He easily shoves the boy, wondering who that little brat is. The noise from the commotion reaches Yena's room, and she looks scared at the door. She and the older woman are horrified when they realize it's her brother and father in the other room. Desperate, the mother runs to the door, but Yena asks them to go together. Quickly, the girl looks for the knife that Chiol had given her. With her hands trembling a little, she finally finds the blade. Armed with the knife, the young woman prepares to go out and help her family. But a familiar voice yells for her not to enter, surprising the young woman. Suddenly, the North Korean and Hobbin appear, running down the hallway. Arriving at the door, the defector immediately points the rifle inside the room. Inside the room, the military man holds the man still and asks who else is there. The young man surprises him from behind and orders him not to move an inch. While the boy screams in desperation, the North Korean keeps aiming at the intruder. The scene shows the tension with the MC's friend aiming at the military man holding the hostage. He then thinks that his last bullet was meant for someone named Park Sung-bin. Without hesitation, our shooter says goodbye to the enemy and prepares to fire. With a steady finger, he finally pulls the trigger to end it all. But to the young man's surprise, he realizes something has gone very wrong. The guy wonders what the heck is going on, as the weapon broke at that very moment. Seizing the opportunity, the military man lunges at our shooter without hesitation. With a swift move, the young man's rifle flies away, leaving him unarmed. Without wasting a moment, the military man pulls the knife from the North Korean's waistband, leaving him surprised. The scene opens on a quiet city street, with cars parked along the curb under the afternoon sun. As someone walks along the sidewalk, they suddenly come to an abrupt stop. His companion turns to face Jun, asking him what is wrong. The young man looks very unwell, explaining that his symptoms seem to be returning. He lifts his hoodie, revealing a large, roughly stitched wound on his side that is still bleeding. Jun says he feels dizzy with a rising fever. His companion decides they should head back. He tells the youth to listen to Yena's advice and not overdo it, offering to take him to the motel to rest. With a worried expression, the young man hesitantly agrees to go back. Leaning on his friend for support, he clutches his side and wonders why he feels sick so suddenly. They make their way down the street toward a yellow van with its doors open. While driving, the defector suddenly lets out a sound of concern, his expression hardening. At that moment, a loud scream echoes from a nearby building, startling them. The scene flashes to a brutal fight, where the defector blocks a knife attack from the soldier. He twists the intruder's wrist with force, attempting to disarm him. Both men are locked in a deadly struggle, each holding a knife in the cramped hallway. In a swift motion, the defector manages to plunge his blade into the soldier's shoulder. The military man lets out a cry of pain as the weapon sinks into his flesh. Without hesitation, the North Korean pushes the knife in deeper to incapacitate his foe. He follows up with a strong kick, sending the injured soldier stumbling backward. The soldier curses in frustration while the defector remains ready, knife in hand. The soldier clutches his wound, wondering if his opponent is an MA fighter because he blocks so well. He glares at Kang Hak-cheol, cursing him under his breath for being so skilled. In an instant, the soldier starts to panic, realizing how many times he has already been stabbed. The defector's blade is covered in blood as he holds it steadily, ready for his next move. The soldier knows one hit to a vital spot will be the end, and he also spots Jun behind his opponent. Hak-cheol calmly asks the intruder how many people he has killed with that very knife. He assumes the soldier must have killed many survivors, calling him crazy for trying to harm an innocent teacher. Then, Hak-cheol makes a surprising confession, admitting he feels a certain way too. He reveals that he feels a great thrill whenever he has to stab someone. The defector adds that the feeling is even better when his target is a criminal like the soldier. The soldier's confidence wavers, and he tells Hak Chil to leave, saying they have no reason to fight. Seeing an opening, the intruder tries to make a deal, which catches the defector's attention. He says his only business is with Yina and Min Jun, promising to leave if they are handed over to him. Hak Chil calls him an idiot, asking why he attacked the teacher. The soldier is left speechless. Cornered, the soldier demands they stop fighting with knives and settle it fairly with their fists. He continues to shout, asking his opponent if he is afraid to fight without a weapon. The soldier tells him not to be a coward while Hak Chil holds his knife and flashlight. In a sudden move, the defector tosses his knife aside, and the soldier does the same, but as the soldier speaks, Hak Chil lunges forward and cuts off his finger, making him scream in pain. Enraged, the soldier yells at him for the dirty trick, still demanding a fair fistfight. The soldier, now terrified, begins to beg for his life, but Hak Chil remains calm with his knife ready. Watching from behind, Jung Min Jun is shocked to see the tough soldier pleading to be spared. With his hands up, the man apologizes for attacking the teacher and promises to do anything to save him. The defector listens to the desperate pleas, his expression remaining cold and unchanged. He calmly tells Park Sung Bin that he must pay for his sins with his life. Realizing his begging is futile, the soldier sweats nervously but agrees to finish things. He looks down at his own bloody knife, preparing for the final confrontation. Gripping his weapon tightly, Sung Bin declares he is ready to go for it. Hak Chil is momentarily confused by his opponent's sudden shift in demeanor. The soldier vows to kill Hak Chil even if he loses an arm, grabbing his backpack as a shield. In a surprise move, Sung Bin throws his backpack directly at the defector. The unexpected tactic catches Hak Chil off guard, leaving him vulnerable for a moment. The soldier immediately lunges forward, tackling his opponent with all his strength. Both men crash to the ground, their bloody shoes tangling as they fall. Sung Bin lands on top of Hak Chil, pinning him to the floor while cursing at him. The two continue to struggle violently on the checkered floor of the motel hallway. Now in a dominant position, Sung Bin holds his knife above the pinned defector. Hak Chil looks up, caught beneath his opponent, unable to move freely. Lying on top of him, the soldier laughs, saying that Hak Chil underestimated him. Suddenly, the defector's eye widens in shock as he notices something unexpected. Jung Min Jun suddenly appears, raising a spike bat high above the downed soldier. With a fierce expression, he brings the weapon down with all his remaining strength. The young man grunts, clutching his side as the pain from his own wound intensifies. On the floor, the soldier screams in agony from the heavy impact of the bat. Barely conscious, Hak Chil looks up and weakly calls out the young man's name. His eyes then roll back into his head as he finally loses consciousness from his injuries. The defector's hand goes completely limp, letting his blood-stained knife fall to the floor. With a serious wound in his shoulder, he now lies unconscious and out of the fight. Seeing this, the soldier pushes himself up and begins to laugh wildly at Min Jun. He mocks the youth, questioning how he dared to attack him with that bat. Min Jun sweats profusely, wondering why his illness had to flare up at this exact moment. The soldier realizes Hak Chil and the teacher are down, leaving only the youth and the boy. He holds up his injured hand, reminding Min Jun that his friend cut off his finger. He vows to make them both pay cruelly, which causes the young man's eyes to widen in fear. The pain becomes too much and the spiked bat slips from his grasp, clattering to the floor. Min Jun lets out a scream of agony, which takes the soldier completely by surprise. The intruder looks on with a confused expression, asking what is wrong with him. The youth collapses, clutching his stomach as the soldier wonders if he is infected. He decides it doesn't matter, concluding he will have to kill him anyway, and retrieving his knife. The soldier stands over his fallen foes, asking the pained young man what he thinks he is doing. To the soldier's surprise, Min Jun stumbles towards one of the nearby doors. He starts banging his fist on door 205, trying to break it down. From inside the room, someone screams, startled by the violent banging. Confused, the soldier wonders what is happening, asking if there are zombies in that room. The young man ignores him and continues to slam his body against the door, yelling in pain. The intruder asks if he's crazy, wondering if he would rather be eaten by zombies than die by his hand. The soldier decides that if Min Jun wants to die, he will be the one to do it and rushes forward. Just as he approaches, the youth manages to get the door open. Min Jun falls through the doorway just as the soldier reaches him, leaving the intruder alone in the hall. The soldier stands in the now brightly lit hallway, staring into the dark room. From the darkness, a scream echoes out, followed by another one. A pair of bloody bare feet steps out of the room, belonging to an infected person. Soon, a small horde of zombies stumbles out into the hallway, moaning loudly. The soldier is now trapped in the narrow hall with the zombies approaching and Hak Chil unconscious behind him. He stares in disbelief, wondering what is happening as the horde shuffles closer. On the floor, the fallen warrior weakly calls out Jung Min Jun's name before passing out. Standing among the infected, Min Jun looks on with a cold and determined expression. The scene flashes back to a table littered with snacks, drinks, and cigarette butts. A young man with a smirk tells Min Jun they should rehearse before Han Yen arrives. He then humiliatingly orders the younger Min Jun to do as he says, laughing at him. The bully taunts the fallen Min Jun, calling him useless as his friends watch on. He grabs the young man, saying he just doesn't like him, and cruelly asks if he is dead like his father. Sung Bin threatens that once Min Jun is gone, he will find his mother and kill her too. The young man's thoughts turn to rage as he blames Park Sung Bin for ruining his entire life. Back in the present, he orders the zombies to attack, deciding he will be the one to judge his old tormentor.